I'd like to bring the, is it workshop? Workshop to order. The time is 6:14. And before we start, I just want to make sure there's nobody from the public who wants to make a comment. Look at him. All righty. So since we don't see any comments, I'll turn it over to Deb and Yvonne. Thank you, ladies, for being here. We appreciate you.
Well, thanks for having us. We are certainly apologetic for getting here late. I typed in the address to our GPS and it sent us about 3 different directions. And it kept telling us, you are here, you are here. And it was like, nope, we're not there yet. Okay, perfect. So how's everybody feeling tonight?
Good.
Tired. Has it been a full day already?
Yeah.
It never ended.
Oh, you had another board meeting last night.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll do our best to try and, I don't know that we're an entertainment team, but we'll try and keep you engaged.
I always thought of myself as entertaining, but.
Well, I find you entertaining. We've been on the road a lot together lately, so doing district work. So let's have a little bit of fun as we get started. And this will give us a chance to get to know you a little bit. So what we put up on the screen, you have in your folders as well. On the right-hand side, you have the PowerPoint presentation. And for those of you that have already taken a peek, you probably wondered what a sheep scale was all about, because there's pictures of 9 different sheep. And I just kind of like to use this as a sort of, let's just get to know each other a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind, we have a printout of the district board profile. And we're going to pass that around as soon as I find it. At some point, we have it here. But when I pass that around, I'm going to ask you to, here it is. I'm going to ask you to take a look at your information that's on there. Make sure it's what you want it to say, because we always take advantage of being out in the districts with the boards to just double check the information that the system has. We want to make sure that you're getting information the way you prefer it. So it just gives us a chance to double check those. And then just, if everything's okay, just go ahead and sign your name by your information, and then that will allow us to give you credit. Cindy Holmes, for those of you that may have met her, our registrar, she'll make sure you get your workshop credit for tonight. But, you know, I've taken a look at that, but Yvonne hasn't. So this is a good way for you to share some information. So if you would say, if you would tell us when you ran for the board, and maybe why, what one thing made you run for the board, and then tell us what sheep you feel like tonight up there. So who would like to start? Which end? Should it be Alan or Laura? Hopefully you don't mind if we call you by your first names. We're pretty informal here.
Thank you. I'll go first.
Okay, Alan.
No problem. My original reason for wanting to be a part of the board was I didn't like what was happening to the members that were on the board. And that's really what kind of got me to watch and listen. I never really paid any attention to it. But when I saw that the board was under attack during that time, and then there was so much chaos, I said, well, so what I decided to do, because I didn't think I would ever be on the board, I just said, well, I'm just going to pray for them. That's what I said, and that's what I did. And that's basically because they were taking so many blows from so many different directions. And I knew some of the people on the board, and I knew Dr. Joyce, and I knew another board member. And so that's one of the main reasons I wanted to help. I said, what can I do to help the board, and what can I do to help the children and their families? And that's really what got me inspired to be a part of it.
And when did you first join the board, Alan? How long
I
ago?
think it was back in October, September of 21, I was appointed. At that time, there had been some resignations, and so I saw, and I remember meeting a board member, Sister Laura, at another meeting, and I asked her about it, and she really kind of laid it out to me. And she said it was some heavy lifting involved. And I told her I saw that. She said, yeah. She encouraged me to put in.
Okay,
Yeah, to come at least and be interviewed.
okay.
I said, I probably won't get picked.
Okay, and Alan, which one of those sheep do you feel like going into tonight's work?
Number 3.
Number 3. Oh, it's like a bad hair day?
Yeah.
Has it been pretty frazzled? Okay, well, hopefully, the material will be engaging enough that you'll be able to leave here with some new perspective and some new ideas about how to work together as a team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, so I was appointed to the board. I don't have a good luck running in elections, but so if I get appointed, I'm no good. But I was appointed, came on with Alan. He got more points than I did, but I can live with that. So I guess I got interested in wanting to help. Over the years, over the decades, I'd seen different boards struggle. And I was on, back in 2008, I was on the district's facility planning committee. It was a group of citizens that came together and kind of took a look at all the facilities and what needed to be done with them as far as closing and where they should be located at, things like that. So to me, it's about helping the children. I got a little motto: children first, safety first, children first. And so I look at the challenges before the district as an opportunity to make improvements. And as far as which of the 9 sheep, I'm thinking number 9 for a couple reasons. One, sometimes I want to jump out of my seat, and at other times I want to take a bigger view of everything and kind of get up on top and do a third dimensional view and look at it at a different perspective, do a little paradigm shift.
Okay, great. Thank you. Kevlin, how about you? I know you didn't run for the board. Okay. So for you, Kevlin, it's what made you decide to take on this role as superintendent to work with this governance group?
It's more of a call than a, I guess, I've been in education for 18 years. So this particular job is more of a calling to me. I've been in leadership a long time, and this is my city. And so I don't carry my feelings on my shoulders. I carry the work. And so for me, it's a call. And as the other parts of my life, they're a call. And so this being a calling is something I have to do more than something that you got a job and do the job. It's something I have to accomplish. We have to do it. And so it's a calling. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
And
Great.
the sheet that I circled was number 9 because I feel like there's a lot to get done. And I feel like I'm going 80 miles an hour trying to get those things done. And so I'm bouncing around everywhere. My team is saying, Joyce, can you come over here? Joyce, can you do this? So I'm moving and saying, no, I need to do this. Get this done, come to me about. So we're moving a lot of parts. So for me, it's number 9, because I'm hopping around that way.
Okay, great. Danielle, how about you?
I ran for the board in 2016. I was elected to, my first year was January 17. And what else? Why I'm here?
Yeah, why you ran? What made you initially decide to be a board member?
I was working in the Flint Community Schools, and I just wanted to play a more significant part on decision-making and kind of shaping and molding what we did in our schools, because I've seen a lot of things I thought we should be doing, and I wanted to try to implement or be a part of it being implemented. So I had a friend who was on the board at the time, Harold Woodson, and I've had known him since like 95, and he was like, you should run for the board. And I was like, no, I don't know nothing about none of that. So he was like, I'm telling you, you should do it. And I had no idea it was 6 years. I had no idea. I just thought, okay, if this will get me in the seat where I can make some positive changes, I'll do it. So I did it, and I'm here. It hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it.
All
And
right.
the sheep. Okay, I'm picking the sheep based on what?
How you
Just-
feel?
Yeah,
How I
how you
feel
feel
about
going into tonight?
Oh, number 5.
Number 5. Oh, a little tired.
Ugh, a lot of tigers. But yeah, I'm number 5 tonight, but I'm getting it together.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks.
Hi.
Can I call you Joyce?
Yes, you can. Yes, you
Okay.
can. My journey started, I was a designer, GM Design Center. I managed a design center GM. And something came up that they said I'd never walk and talk and speak again, but that didn't happen. And I began a journey on, they had a problem in Flint. GM sent me what would Flint look like. And I ended up coming here on a pilot program, moving, how could you move people from welfare to work? And I created a early childhood development center with an at-risk after-school program. And I hired low-income moms. But what did I found out that was shocking, but there was a literacy problem. I could not find adequate employees, even though they might have had associate degree, but there was something missing in their literacy area. So I created literacy training programs. When my kids left early child education, they actually could leave pre-K, kindergarten, and actually could have went to first and second grade. And so after that program, I did that for about 14 years. I had about 50 employees. They all got their degrees, and a lot of them have their master's degree. I have one that's I think she's our doctor at one of the hospital. So I trained people to be leaders. Then I ended up working in the Flint Community School because I was concerned about what happened to the literacy in the African American culture. And that really bothered me because I know African American children can read. And so as I began coming to the school, I was able to get them from in the 4th grade on a 1st grade reading levels, I was able to get them to where they need to be. But I know that I couldn't do it under the system that was already designed. So I made it up in my mind that in order to make changes, you have to be at the table. And I decided that, okay, it's time for me. I worked in about every school I've been in, not just about a lot of schools in different states as well, and they all had the same problem. And changes come from sitting at this table right here. So I took the initiative. I ran for city council twice and got on the ballot for the school board, and I was one of the top runners. So I'm here thinking it was going to be easy to make changes, but it's a challenge.
And so, Joyce, how long have you been on the board?
A year now. I'm going into my 2nd year, I believe. Yeah, be going into my 2nd year.
Okay. And how about your sheep? What sheep resonates with you?
I wear so many hats, I can be all of them today. I'm serious. I feel like all of them. Have you ever felt that way?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like Mr. Jones, I'm about ready to leap on in a minute. So I'm at number 9, but I feel like number 5.
Okay. Little mixture there, right?
Yeah,
Of feeling.
yes.
Okay. Adrian, how about you?
Oh, well, good evening, and thanks for coming. My name is Adrian Walker. I was actually appointed to the board in January of 21. We were actually still virtual, so my interview process was virtual. I actually had COVID at the time of the interview process, so it was really
Yeah.
interesting to go through it. In terms of my rationale for joining the board, it's so interesting, right? Like Flint, as I'm sure you all know, is just a town filled with pride, right? There's no meeting or convening that you can't go to that once a person maybe introduce themselves and maybe where they reside, that the next thing is their high school, right? And that pride that comes from attending one of the Flint high schools. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to have that experience after 8th grade. My mom decided to move me to a different school district. And, I graduated from there. But for me, I wanted to join the board to be a part of the policies and procedures that could hopefully stop the bleed of students to other school districts and continue to have students have an opportunity to be a part of that legacy of attending and graduating from Flint schools. So that was the main reason why I wanted to join the board. Just, again, thinking about my lived experience and what I didn't have, but the opportunity that we have to, again, not just restore, but again, continue to build up that legacy and that pride that we have in our school district. And in terms of the sheet that I feel like, I would say 7, right? So and 7 because we're working remote right now. So all of my meetings are like Zoom, right? And there's the Zoom fatigue. So while I'm tired from that, I'm excited that this is in person. So that's why you see me peaking a little bit and excited to just be surrounded by people. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Laura, how about you?
Yeah, so mine is I don't know where I would start. I would say that I start because education is a cornerstone of our democracy, and public education is imperative to any society. And our public education has been under continuous assault, and we have austerity and neoliberal policies that have been consistently assaulting our democratic public education system. And I'm an abolitionist, and I firmly believe in ending the school to prison pipeline, which is inherent in our school system. So I'm a product of the Flint schools. I was born and raised here. My parents were Flint school teachers. Like Adrian, I got moved out to the suburbs, so I didn't graduate from the Flint schools, but I grew up I was born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s, and my Flint school was destroyed by a highway being built behind it. And so I watched systematically as our schools were continuously attacked over the decades. And I went away to school. I was fortunate enough to go away. I'm a PhD dropout. I went to the University of California and I started teaching there. I've been in the higher ed teaching system. I teach for the U of M, Michigan, University of Michigan, Flint right now. So I'm a public sociologist. And so I look at systems of power. And I'm a member of the Flint Democracy Defense League. I came back to Michigan, to Flint specifically in the mid 2000s. And that was when we were starting to fight against the financial emergency manager system, which led to the downfall of public education and the Flint water crisis. And so all of these things were culminating in 2010 leading up to 2014. And I went through a variety of different positions in that fight, in that capacity, including as a reporter, sitting in the audience of the Flint schools. And I remember desperately trying to fight against the school to prison pipeline. I was on the Flint Citizens to End the School to Prison Pipeline and a superintendent subcommittee meeting, and we never had access to the superintendent. There were always powers that were behind the scenes fighting to dismantle our schools. And I would sit in the audience and wonder what it would have to take in order for me to have a voice and to get the ear of the superintendent. And so then in the last election, I ran, I just was like, well, I'm going to run for the school board, fully expecting that I would not win because I'm very plain and outspoken, and I speak out against powerful forces, including the Mott Foundation, who I feel is systematically one of the interest dismantling our public school system, even though they claim to have been the ones that created the public schools. And I spoke truth to power, and excuse my French, but I ran on the No Fucks campaign, and I raised $0, and that's what I did, and I got elected to the board, and so here I am. And that was same thing with Joyce. And pardon my language, but that was the campaign. I literally ran on that campaign. So
Okay. And so how about where are you
I'm
feeling
number
tonight?
7, but unlike Adrian, I'm on the spectrum, and so I do very good face work and can make eye contact, but I really feel like I want to be in a dark cave, and I'm very introverted, and so I can do this, but I don't like it. So I'm kind of like
Okay.
this.
I appreciate knowing that. That's helpful to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Hey, another introvert in the room.
I know. I love it. Because I'm really an introvert by nature too. And everybody says, well, how could you go out and do this work? And it's like, because I have a calling. I feel very passionate about board service and knowing the impact it can make if it's done well. And so I just get over my introversion to do this work, and then I go home and recoup. Yeah. Hey, Carol, good to see you. Nice to see you. So I think maybe by now you sort of caught on to what we're doing, just when you ran, what made you run, and then what sheep you might be feeling like tonight.
What made me run was my neighbor, a young man, he was a couple grades older than my niece that I had custody of at the time. She was going to St. Paul. And we were having a spelling contest on my porch, and he couldn't spell basic 3-letter words. And when I asked him what school he went to a Flint school. And it was very disappointing because I am a product of the Flint school. So I knew things were getting bad, but to witness that, was just heartbreaking. So I wanted to find out what was going on in my community, that our children couldn't get a decent education like I got from this same system. So I talked to a friend of mine, and she was telling me that some board seats were available, and she was like, you should run, because we were talking about the school district and how the kids aren't getting a proper education. And I told her, I said, I think I am. And so at the last minute to get your paperwork, basically, I ran down there because I forgot about it. And it dawned on me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I shot, because you can't keep talking about it if you're not going to try to be a part of the solution. So I shot down there, got my paperwork. It was the last day to turn it in. You're supposed to turn your paper in at 4 o'clock. I got there at on my way down there, I saw this gentleman I knew. He has gout. His feet were literally on the ground, and he had some Velcro flip-flops. So I decided to stop and fix his flip-flops for him. So I get up there. It's 3 minutes to 4. And I look at the clock, and the lady looks at me, and I'm standing there. And so now it's about 4 o'clock, and the lady says, she's, she give her a minute. And she says, can I help you? I said, yes, I need to turn my paperwork in. She says, well, you're too late. And when she said I'm too late, the lady sitting here, she said, you know what? If I didn't look at the clock and see that you turned your paperwork in on time, I wouldn't let you turn it in. Because she told me 4:30 initially, but it was 4 o'clock. And they explained to me it was my responsibility to know that, which it was. And so, but she saw that I was on time. So she let me turn my paperwork in, and I did. And here I am. It's unbelievable. It's like the Twilight Zone, like doo-doo-doo-doo, bah. Like, for real? Really? But I remember the night of the election, I was so sick watching the tally come in. I was just nauseated. I said, I'm just going to go to bed. And if it's meant to be, then the Lord will make it manifest itself. And I woke up the next day like, golly, I won. I made it in there. God is good. And here so it's funny how things work. So I just feel like it was divine intervention. I have a lot of opinions about a lot of things, but like I said, if you're not going to try to be a part of the solution, then you might as well keep your opinions to yourself. So I'm here to make sure kids behind me could at least get as good of an education as I got. I feel like they should be getting better with all the technology and nuances that go with education now that we didn't have access to, but it's gotten so much worse. And I just could not for the life of me understand how we came to this point. So I felt the need to get involved to understand. And now I do. It is not because of all the things we believe or you hear that the teachers don't care, and that it is a setup. It is a setup for failure. It is an absolute setup for failure. And when you don't have what you need to engage the students, then they will drift and find other things to get interested in. Young people need to stay busy. And I think as an education system and as a community, we are failing our young people, and they are using the tools and the only avenues that they have. So I just want to try to be the change for somebody.
Okay. So Carol, remind me when you first ran for the board.
During the election with Donald Trump and Hillary, what year was that? 2016. It seems just like yesterday, but 6 years. This is the last year. This is the 5th year going into the 6th year. So
Okay, great. And then how about the sheep that you're sort of identifying with tonight?
tonight, or
Yeah.
because I'm all over the place too, because tonight I'm feeling like 5, but any given day I could be 2, 3, 5, 6, or 7.
Just not 4.
No.
Well, that's good. Every once in a while, somebody will say a 4. So, well, thank you very much for humoring us. I think that helps us in our conversation this evening. Again, just to know a little bit about you. I'm just going to share a little bit about myself, because why should you all listen to me, right? What do I know about this work? And then I'm going to let Yvonne tell you a little bit about herself. So, one of the interesting things I noticed when you all went around is nobody said, I always set out to be a school board member. It was my dream goal in life to be a school board member. It all kind of happened by happen chance, right? You saw some things you didn't like necessarily. You felt like your perspective would be useful at the board table. And that was sort of what happened with me as well. I was involved in my children's school district for many years in various capacities. And one day somebody said, hey, we're going to have an opening. I think you ought to consider it. And actually, they didn't appoint me, but I came back at the next election cycle and was elected, and I served over 15 years in my district and saw some pretty incredible things happen, made a lot of tough decisions. I used to be able to say before COVID that I had dealt with just about anything any one of you were ever going to face. I no longer can say that. And thank you so much for all of the grief you have all taken during this period, because it's a thankless job on the best days. But in this period, it has definitely been that, right? No matter what you do, it's wrong by some large segment of population, larger than ever before. Extremely difficult in these times to serve. So you deserve some recognition for that commitment that you've made. So I served for over 15 years at my local district, served on the ISD board for several years, and I served on MASB's board of directors. And I worked for a couple of the other education groups, elementary and middle school principals and the superintendents. And about the same time, I finished my master's work in nonprofit management or governance. An opening happened at MASB, and I thought, this is perfect. I got so much out of MASB as a board member. And I really felt this draw to board service. I had given it all up when I moved to the Lansing area. And so I've been extremely lucky to go out and work with boards across the state, doing workshops and strategic planning and whatever else boards need some assistance with. So that's a little about me. Yvonne, how about you?
So I didn't think I needed a microphone, but you're recording, so probably I need to speak into it, right? So my name is Yvonne Kamal Kanul, and I retired from being the superintendent of the Lansing School District after almost 8 years. I really love what you said, Kevlin, about it being a calling. Being a superintendent for me was a calling. I was working at Michigan State University on a research project between University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and MSU, funded by the Kellogg Foundation. And the board came and said to me, we need you to come to Lansing. I'd been a teacher and a principal there for 27 years. And went to the Department of Education, Michigan Department of Education, to run the brand new Office of School Improvement and launch the No Child Left Behind Act for the state of Michigan in 2001. And so, and in between that, I worked in a corporate environment in Atlanta, traveled around the world developing strategic plans and strategic memorandums of understanding with different ministries of education, China, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, UAE, among them, and came back to the States and settled back into Lansing, and the board said, we really need you to come and take care of business, but we only need you for 82 days. So, okay, 82 days, I'm retired, I could do that. 8 years later, I decided it was time for me to retire and just sort of like chill out. And then Debbie said, "Hey, would you like to come and work with me in MASB?" My passion, my love is the what you say, Laura and Carol. Is to try to have people understand the strategic plight that's in place on urban school districts. Having been a superintendent in Lansing, I was 2 blocks from the Dome, so I had to pay a lot of attention to what was going on. And I can tell you, as an administrator, school administrator in 1993, when the schools of choice legislation came about, it was clear to me that it was the beginning of the end of the public school system. It was set up to be that way, and especially in the urban areas where people could make choices to leave, especially if you're landlocked, in a landlocked urban area, right? And there's nowhere to grow your neighborhoods, there's nowhere to build homes, there's nowhere to move outside of that environment. And so it became a mission of mine to work with people in those urban areas. I belong to the Urban Superintendents Association of America, and have had many conversations with other superintendents in other urban areas around the United States. I was raised in Latin America. I was born in Owasso, and my parents got the heck out of there, I guess. And I was raised in Brazil, northeastern Brazil, Mexico, and Chile, and came back to the United States when I was about 15 years old. So I speak Spanish at home. My husband's Mexican. Mexican Indian, I have to say that because he doesn't want to be confused with being a non-Indian Mexican. And we speak Spanish at home, and I have spoken Spanish my entire life. So I've always felt akin to my people, even though you can look at me and think that I'm not. But, it's what's inside that counts sometimes. And so I'm just so thrilled. I asked Debbie if I could be with her tonight here in Flint.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think we have a broad background, right, and perspectives, and I think it really serves boards well when we can get the opportunity to work together. So thank you for.
Oh, by sheep.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you do your sheep?
I didn't, but you go
Okay.
first.
Oh, gosh. Well, okay, my propensity is number 1.
Yeah, you are a little sassy.
I'm a little sassy, like what? But basically, I think I'm also an extreme introvert, and after tonight, just like you, Laura, I'm going to go home and put my head under some covers and get my energy back. I'm really kind of a 9. I like to get her done. I like to get out there and take care of business.
Yeah, and so I've been saying I'm sort of a cross between 6 and 9. During the period when we were forced into the shutdown, right? Here I am used to being out in districts and doing the work face to face, where I think it's the best situation possible, right? Because it's a different conversation when you're all in the same room than it is in those Zoom boxes, right? So I'm excited to be back out again in districts and sharing that conversation. And then I kind of feel like 6 because, when we were working from home, right, we were all doing it in our shorts or sweats and flip-flops and whatever. And, now we get to dress up, put on makeup and wear earrings and, all that sort of thing. So I feel,
daisies,
yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a combination of those 2 things for me. So why would we even start I want to ask you that. Why would we even start with the conversation we've had? Because I'm sure that most of you came thinking, oh, they're going to give us some information and they're just going to, sort of teach it to us. But that's not the way we started this workshop. So why do you think we did it the way we did?
Sometimes I do things before I do a workshop is to bring people into a place of gathering and listening and kind of get your mind off trying to figure out what you're going to do. So it's usually kind of bring that, change the atmosphere. Like how I came in, I really was just kind of like one of those sheeps. But then when you began to talk and listen to each other, you just get a different perspective of people and why they do, if they say why you do what you do, and you kind of understand people a little bit during those conversations.
Yeah, that's a good point because, even when, how many of you, a number of you identified number 9 as your sheep, right?
Yeah.
And not even all for the same reason, right? What you saw in 9 was totally different than what someone else saw in 9. And it really is all those various perspectives that we bring with us to the table that are important. It's how you get to good solutions, is having all of those perspectives and viewpoints. And so that is definitely a part of it. And then just to kind of get you starting to talk, and although you've been sitting at the table with each other or in Zoom, right? The board table's not really set up to get to know each other, is it? Like, that's not a thing. It's come in, sit down, do the business of the board, and then leave. And, the research around effective school boards from the Iowa Lighthouse Research, which is the only comprehensive research ever in place about school board service. And that was undertaken by our counterparts in Iowa, along with their state Department of Education and Iowa University, and then their Superintendents Association joined in to say, what is it that effective boards do to make the biggest impact on student achievement? And part of that is just simply getting to know each other. It sounds just a little light, but the more you understand who each other is, the much more willing you all are to work together at good solutions, right? Because you start caring about the other people at the table and you want to do good work together. You all came to this work because you wanted to make a difference for students, right? And so then we just have to figure out, so if that's true, and we're going to have different perspectives that we all bring, how do we do that work and do it well together, right? And so some of that is what we're going to talk about tonight. The work is based on that research from the Iowa Lighthouse study. So how about, Yvonne, do you want to do the next couple slides?
Yeah, so just some ground rules for conversation. I'm sort of looking at this group thinking ground rules you don't need. But just for humoring me, being engaged, being here, being present. It's sort of the fish philosophy from many years ago, which said, you can't really come to a conclusion or a solution if you're not here to do that. Listening for understanding, because sometimes what people say isn't exactly what they mean, but if you listen carefully, you'll understand better or ask for clarification. Of course, always respect other people's viewpoints, even though they may seem strange or not the same as yours. There has to be a respect for other people's viewpoints in this space. Keeping the personal electronic devices silenced would be really helpful, because that leads to being engaged and being present. And respecting airtime, which is making sure that we all are respectful of the amount of time we're taking away from other people's time to be able to contribute. So making it brief, succinct, to the point, and always making sure that there's time for other people to contribute as well. Are there any other guidelines that you use here at the board table? The horseshoe, as we used to call it in Lansing. Laura?
For this process. We're all professionals.
Yes.
All,
yes.
We've all been in your seat and you've been in ours, and so just to underscore, trust the process.
Sure.
And it was like you said, why are we starting with an icebreaker? Why are we doing this? And just to remember to trust the process. Like, it may not seem like, well, why are we trying to get to this goal? Or, oh, you're doing this. But this is,
Right.
you know, MASB has been so helpful to Flint schools. And we really, I think, had a groundbreaking pivotal moment at the conference, especially as a newly convened board. This is very a new board, but, you know, we're all really excited to be here. So I don't know what to say besides trust the process. Like, just let go and, you know, trust each other with this skill.
I really appreciate that feedback, Laura, because it actually is one of my mantras in life is trust the process, because we may think we know where we're going, but there are always other voices that are going to help us get there in a different way. So thank you for contributing that. Are there any other ground rules or thoughts you might want to share? Okay, great.
Oh, I'd like to do the next one too.
Oh,
'cause
gosh,
you
wait, I
added-
went backwards. Oh,
no,
boy.
down. Yeah, it's down.
It's down. Okay. So I'm sure you're all quite familiar with Simon Sinek, who wrote the book on First Ask Why. He has a new book out called The Infinite Game, and I can't wait to read it. It's about how people in an organization make sure that the organization lives healthily long after they have left. And so I'm looking forward to reading that book. But anyway, Simon says that a team is not a group of people that work together. A team is a group of people that trust each other. And so we thought we would put that up there for review and making sure that we are working together to achieve clearly identified goals.
So what do you think about that statement from Simon? It's not just about working together, it's about trusting. This would be the interactive portion of the board.
On every agenda of our principal week.
Oh, is it really? That's great.
It's not about people that work together. It's about people that trust and care for one another.
Yeah, that's what a team is. Yeah. That's great.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gilbert?
Mr. Gilbert, he's gone. Alan is okay.
All right, Alan. Thank you for giving me permission.
Thank you. We, coming from a sports background and working in General Motors for 33 years, the team concept always crept in. But as Superintendent Jones talked about that, is that, you know, sometimes you can work with people every day for 25 or 30 years and never trust them. But yet it's called a team. And so I just wanted to kind of, I guess, confess that, so to speak. And you don't realize it till maybe when you leave it and you retired, and then you kind of think back the way that you work with your fellow employees on the job. And that is, it's kind of difficult to, when you look back, that maybe you thought you were giving your best, but it could have been a little bit more that could have been done on, not on so much their part, but on your part. Because I think trust is, we say it's not earned, it's not given, all this, but it just doesn't happen by osmosis. It never will, because it's not designed to, that's not what it is. And so you spoke about what's inside. Most of us don't like for people outside to know what's inside of us. It takes time to get there. So I guess I just wanted to confess that, so to speak. That's all.
But you all are embarking on the most important mission. You are a team that is responsible for the most important mission on earth, and that's being a school board member for Flint.
Yeah, and And in your folders on the left-hand side, you probably wondered what this piece of paper was, right? That says trust on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think we've already sort of set the stage that you've got to have trust to do this work and do it well, right? That you have to believe in each other, that each of you are committed to the work, that you're going to follow through on, promises made, promises kept, those kinds of things. You also have to have trust as a board with the superintendent and as the superintendent with the board. And that, you're right, Ellen, it doesn't come overnight. It takes time to build that. And as you pointed out, Laura, you're a relatively young team, right? And so it's going to take a bit of time to build that trust with each other. And I like to use this kind of as a quick visual demonstration around how the breaking of trust can really be very damaging. So I want you to sort of think for a moment, what are some things in this team? And when MASB talks about a governance team, we're talking about the 7 elected and or appointed members, plus the superintendent. Definite and distinct roles and responsibilities. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. But together is the team that you form as a governance team, if that makes sense. So what might be an example of something that could break trust among this group?
Not just amongst this group, but any group of people would be not being honest.
Okay.
I think that, I'm not saying that's going on here because I don't think that is, but I think honesty and transparency are those things that would bother me the most. Or lack of honesty.
So let's everybody take our paper that has trust on it and just crumple it a little bit, right? Because we've damaged that trust. So maybe somebody else can give us another example of something. Might be something you've seen here. It might be something you've experienced someplace else.
Is that Joyce?
Groups and team is used as lack of communication and respect.
Lack of communication and respect.
Yeah. Okay. So give it another crumple. Let's take one more thing. Somebody else give us one more example.
What about like procrastination,
Ooh, procrastination.
right? Like when you know that something can get done in a specific amount of time, yet you drag your feet in doing it, then I'm gonna find it hard to trust you to be able to execute.
Okay. So give it one more crumple. Right. Now, for some of us, our crumples are a little bigger. And for some, a little less. But now that we've had that broken trust, and then we start working to rebuild it, right? And so as you start to rebuild after those incidents, right, you can get a little bit of that crumple out of there. But is this the same as it was, even though I've done some trust building, had some positive things happen between us, right? It's not the same. Maybe it is after a lot of time and under a stack of heavy books, right? I might get most of that out of there. But it's important to remember that it doesn't take very much to chip away at the trust that you might have in place. But boy, it takes a long time to build it, right? It takes a lot of effort. It has to be something that everyone's committed to doing on a regular basis. And when those things happen that break that trust, we also have to be willing to open up, be honest, and have a meaningful dialogue about what it looked like and how can we fix it so that it doesn't happen again, right? And sometimes we shy away from those conversations. We think, oh, it'll take care of itself, or, oh, we're just going to have to live with it because that's the way it is. And what it typically does then is exacerbate the problem, right? It just makes it that much worse because we don't deal with it. It becomes the elephant in the room, and it gets in the way of all the other stuff that we try to do because we haven't dealt with it.
So that would be rebuilding trust then, right? Because trust is hard and it takes time, as Pastor Gilbert said, but rebuilding is another task within itself.
Yeah.
At least for me, once it's violated, it take me a minute, That's just me.
and know that some folks are going to be a little more leery than others because of previous experiences they've had where trust has been broken. Right. And so some people may come even to the table being ready to trust more openly, and others are a little more, no, I think you need to prove yourself to me. Right. And we've got all of that probably here. Some of us a little more hesitant than others. And so it's hard enough to build trust, but much harder to rebuild trust. Laura.
This is seemingly obvious, but this is Flint, Michigan, and we're still in the middle of a water crisis. It hasn't ended for long, and our trust has been repeatedly, irrevocably broken. And so like the trust, like that not by any of us, with each other, but we're in a community where it's a culture. We have not just trust, but we've been betrayed by people that believe government officials, things that we're supposed to protect as a people, and we're still in it. So within that context, you know, of course we've got students and scholars and families and things like that. It's just, so and even talking about trust is kind of distasteful, but like, what are you going to take to be able to trust you? Well, are you trustworthy? Because we haven't had a lot of trustworthiness.
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that was actually what I was going to say, is that while you are building internal trust amongst yourselves, you're living in a context where trust is, you know, sort of tenable. And you all are building your trust among yourselves so that the community can trust you to be the people that finally promise and deliver. Because you're right, it's been a trust that's been broken externally. And so internally, people are waiting for you for them to trust you, right? So there are two levels of it, your trust and then the trust within the context of your community, just like Laura said. Yes, Dr. Joyce.
I appreciate what Ms. McIntyre just said, because that's where we at, even from your classroom to your churches, to the whole environment. We live in an environment of non-trust. I don't trust the doctors. I don't trust people. I don't trust the water. And so it's hard for me to come together. The minute I see one glimpse of that mistrust, then I go back into that, and we just trust certain groups. So we with Democracy Defense, so we know that that's a trustworthy group. And when I was in the classroom teaching, that's some of the biggest problems that children have in a society where we just don't trust. And it's a good conversation, but that just something just come back as time heals itself, and healing begins with me. You know, I'm my worst enemy, because anytime I hold grudges or hurl things inside of me, then I'm the problem. So change began with me. And but we got to get that out in our community, because we're trying to move the community. And like Ms. McIntyre said, this trust is a issue that we really don't want to talk about, because it doesn't, in my opinion, go too far.
And any fissure, any fracture that exists on the board just is exacerbated at the community level. So it's so critical for you all to trust each other. Kevin?
And I agree with those sentiments. And I think for me, it's almost like a suspense when you inherit a lot of things that have happened over years, right?
Yeah.
And I've talked to each one of the board members about not wanting to lose that trust. And it's almost like a suspense movie as you work throughout the day, because you want to make sure that your team, you want to make sure that, we're not doing that. We're not. And so I understand the fragileness of our community, and the fragileness, and please don't take that the wrong way, of our board, of the things that our board is fighting for. And so it's a space where it's very delicate.
It's delicate.
Where you want to make sure not only your relationship with the board, but my team's relationship with the board is moving in the right direction so we can get work done. And so, to like what Ms. Joyce said, as soon as I see something that looks like the past, I'm like, I don't know if I can trust that team, right? And so, working on that for myself, it's an inner work that I have to do, but it's a delicate space, you know, where I sit to ensure that I don't lose this trust because it means a lot to my work. And so working through that is an everyday thing, you know?
Yeah, it is a constant thing, right? It's not something you can take for granted. Like, even if you feel it, it takes so little to disrupt it that it's like a relationship, right? I mean, you have to constantly work at it. There's going to be ups and downs. And given the fact that we are in this, you know, I don't know what else to call it, but this crazy period of time where things are so fractured, so disjointed, you know, so opposite ended, and every topic, it seems like, no matter what you bring up, there's no in between. It's, you know, I'm on this end or this end. And so, you know, our goal is to help you be potentially, like you said, the change is within you. Hopefully this governance team can be a model, right, of what it can look like when you keep your eye on the prize, which is your students and what you want for them, right? And how you can model good behavior at the board table that filters down through the organization and filters out into the community.
Because even though you may have been elected or appointed by a constituency, as a collective, you are the face of the district. And that's what people see, is the functionality of the board is the functionality of the district.
Yeah. And when they see that, what looks to be an effective group working well together, even with disagreements,
Yeah.
right? We're not saying that everybody, you know, it has to be a 7-0 vote all the time, and there should never be differences of opinions. We're not saying that. It's how you handle those things, though, that make the difference, right? And when they can see that, gosh, look at them, they can work through those disagreements in a healthy manner, come out on the other side with the best solution because they've listened to the various viewpoints and incorporated some things in there and come together to find the best possible direction, that then others can start saying, we can have that trust again. We can see little pieces of it in our elected officials. We can trust they're going to do the right things, right? And that takes time. But I just kind of wanted to start there. You'll see beyond that, there's a sheet that's taken from one of our CBA classes about building trust. And there's just some little things on that list about some things that you could potentially do to work on building that trust among this group, right? It can be something as simple as a book study, right? Where you provide some opportunity for, you know, discussion around an agreed upon book. Maybe the book that Yvonne just mentioned.
The Infinite
about,
Game.
Yeah, leadership, you know, after you've moved on. It could be any number of things. You're sharing a meal this evening, right? And having informal conversations with each other. So there's just some suggestions there, and I would urge you to sort of look at some of those things potentially as ways to, you know, start working on that. You mentioned, Laura, coming to ALC, right? And having that feeling, you know, having been at the conference and this team and how you came away even feeling good about that, right? And so that's one of those ways, is attending trainings together or having work sessions like this with or without a facilitator, right? Sometimes it can just be your group. But all of those things matter in working on that trust. So here's, I don't know how many of you have heard about Tuckmans stages of group development, but I like to use it in working with boards. Now, I'm going to, you know, give a disclaimer on the bottom of that slide. It says there's 5 stages and there's only 4 columns, right? But the 5th column is about a group who comes together to do a very specific task. They complete it and then they're disbanded. So it's really not pertinent to the conversation tonight because that's not going to happen here. So I want you to take just a minute read through those different categories, and then I'm going to ask you to share your perspectives.
It's on the PowerPoint. Miss Carroll, it's on the PowerPoint.
Yep, everything that's up on the screen is in your PowerPoint, in your
It's
folder.
in this folder, yeah. Sorry. The staple, yeah, there you go.
Yep. And so I'm going to give you just a couple minutes to read through those. And then what I want you to share with us is where you think this group, this team of 8, so not previous boards but this team of 8 so far falls most often. Not all the time, but most often.
Could you repeat that?
So I want you to read the different categories and then just share your perspective with us about where you think this team of 8 falls most often if we were looking at stages of group development. So I'll be quiet. Does everybody kind of have a sense? So who would be willing to share their perspective first? Okay, Alan.
I would say the green section, storming.
Okay, and what made you pick that one?
Well, one of the things that, being a new member, my aspirations was quickly shut out. And I thought it was just the rest of the members, but it had a lot to do with myself. And is it something that I want to happen based upon my feelings and not the feelings of why I was actually here, a power struggle. Maybe the rest of the members didn't know it, but I did. So.
I'm
then
sorry,
the-
Alan, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Pardon?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yes, I'm sorry, Sister Laura, that the power struggle which can cause conflict, was something that I thought that was amongst the board, being on the outside looking in. And so, but some of that, as I looked at it, was within me. And so that was able to help me not to be so, try not to cause a conflict. And then the other part is I tried to seek to understand the value and the disposition of each board member, what I like to call their gift and calling, as Superintendent Jones talked about. Because of my calling in life, in ministry, it kind of helped me to be able to observe and look, being a people person. But then as I did that, I didn't see what I was looking for. I was looking for more light, and it wasn't as much light as I was hoping for. It was some darkness in there. As far as the way I looked at it, it wasn't so much darkness in individuals, but it wasn't clear to me really what we were going to really do for the kids, for the district, for the city, for ourselves. A whole lot of things kind of went through my mind as I looked at it. And then the goals and visions, stuff like that. How do we get from A to B? What will it take to get there? So.
Good, thank you. Who else? would like to share theirs. And don't feel, that your perspective has to be the same, right? I mean, there's no wrong answers here. It's what you feel the group, where you feel the group is right now.
The only reason I'm not saying anything, because I'm with Pastor Gilbert. I was at Storming also.
Okay.
I don't want to really repeat, but what he said, his sentiments are just like mine, but that's where I am at Storming also.
Okay.
I wonder if anybody's different. That's what I want to know.
No?
So I'm with the storming part too, but I think we're heading towards the norming part more than the heading backwards into the forming part, because as I reflect on our journey at this time last year, Joyce and I were new in January, and it was a completely different board. And then 2 members resigned. We have a new superintendent. I mean, it's almost like a revolution. Revolution implies intent. It's like something, there was a storm and we all got tossed up in the surf. And here we are. But I want to say that I'm positive, and I'm usually a negative person or a critical person. Let's just put it that way.
Analytical.
And I have this sense of hope, I guess, because the team has possibility. And I always look at history like when there's changes or transformations or revolutions, it's like there's a window, there's a moment, there's a crack. And is it going to be, it's like the empty meeting grounds. Is it going to be possibility fulfilled, or is it going to turn into another totalitarian regime of an iron cage? And we've got our moment right now. This is a historical moment. I mean, Flint, Michigan, the Flint schools, the position of the Flint schools, and it's the historical moment. And it's like, it's like you said, like with school choice and vouchers and No Child Left Behind, we were on a trajectory. Well, we're still on a trajectory. Are we going to be able to save public education and democracy and, all of these things? Or there's a moment. And I don't want to just dominate the conversation. So like when you ask a question, I always have an answer that I can give you. So if you need that, you can call on me. But I also want
I
to
was
leave.
afraid to call on you because you did talk about being a bit of an introvert. So I didn't want to put you on
No,
the
but
spot.
I'm also like a professor and I can go on for hours. But I mean, I want to also, it's like the stand back and step up
Yeah.
rules. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Joyce.
I could feel all of these in a way, and I'm just going to say how I feel. When I first came in, it was a very dark space for this board. And when I said dark, it was very dark. We walked in, Chip, thinking that we were finna save the world and walk straight into hell. And so it's the truth. So we had formed this 4-pack. It was just like it was for us against them. And when we said them, the whole thing. And so I think that we got through that hurdle. Then we went to another storm. And then we found out our personality and stuff. My biggest fear is that now we get through this, and here we go. I don't ever want to go back to that space. And that's my biggest fear, that this election that's coming up, and that we have 10 months to get all of this done and make history, and we can do this. But where I don't want no other board member to come in and sit in this seat that I sat in with no direction, no understanding, just here trying to figure your way through. And so I can just say right now that I don't feel storming, I feel norming. That is kind of normalizing. But my biggest fear that when I get to Norman, that come November and December, if these if we don't get back to this seat, then it's gonna be a heck of a place for us. That's where I'm at.
How many
It's just gonna be Laura and I would be the only 2 left in November. And
You,
so,
5?
yeah,
Oh, my
Right.
God.
and so that's where,
And the dark money's coming in and.
Oh.
yeah, and so
Kevlin?
that's the,
Kevlin?
yeah,
Mm.
and that's the tension that's the demon that we gonna, that I face is that, us sitting here got to get this done
Yeah.
in 10 months where nobody can uproot.
Yeah,
We
right.
got to get past some things.
Right.
So that's where I'm at, is that I don't, even to the point that I don't even feel like being normal because I'm on edge that we only have 10 months. And then the same people, yes, we have good days and bad days, but I love every last one of them. And I don't want to really work with nobody else because during those good days and bad days, you get to know each other.
I bet Kevlin doesn't want to work with
and then
anybody else
when we're
either.
talking about when we're talking about the outcome of the kids, about the end of the thing is that these kids got to have something better than
Absolutely.
what they have now.
Absolutely.
And that's what my biggest fear is, that we're fighting for this. And then come November, December, when I look across the room, I don't see these people. They don't understand my passion. They don't understand this fight. And so,
Or they do understand it. They're not.
yeah, and we don't know who they are. So that's where I'm at. Then hopefully I can kind of get through that. That's a passion for me, that we don't fought too hard to come in and somebody come in
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
not even understand. But I don't want nobody to feel that way. But that's how Laura and I feel. We feel like, I'm not ready to lose them. I don't care how difficult it is we get along, but I'm not ready to lose you guys. And God knows I'm not ready to lose you. So if I have to get out there and we have to hustle, I'm just begging you, please get back on the ballot. That's all. That's all I can say.
I gotta say something behind that. Oh, I'm sorry. And this just cracked me up because I couldn't go anywhere that first year. It was just me and the Max. Wherever I went, they was like, you and the Max. Like we were in the Max. I mean, Carol McIntosh, Joyce McNeil, and Laura McIntyre. Everywhere I go, they would tell you how great me and the Max are doing. So I'm one of those who see this up. And it's a fight within me whether I'm on rerun or not.
Yours, Miss Carol?
Yeah,
And Mr.
all
And
of
you
them.
two are the only two that are here.
Only two people gonna be left is them.
It's Joyce and Laura.
Well, somebody's got to stand out there with the Velcro shoes, make sure that
Yeah, it's
that application gets in place.
It's a fight.
I'm kidding.
I know.
Carol, go ahead.
This journey has been, when I say this has been exasperating for me, when I say, because I came in thinking, I'm going to come in and these kids, we're going to get them a good education. They need books and buses and we're going to get this stuff. And all these people are intelligent. They're on the school board. And I got in here and I'm like, excuse my French, what the hell is this here? Oh my God. I'm like, I'm going to be honest. I work in this shop and I'm a UAW member. This game here is way more gangsterish than, yes, baby. Oh, the UAW ain't got nothing on school board. Nothing on school board. And it's sad to say that because this here and the calculating, the setting up, the manipulating, and I'm going to apologize to some of my board members right now. I apologize to anybody that I may have rubbed wrong. This has been a constant fight for 5 years for me. I mean, fight. Because if you don't fight, you lose the bag and you lose the district. You put your best windmill on or you on the ground and somebody's stepping on your back. So to get here where I am today, to even be able to sit at this table, whether I'm speaking to them or I'm mad at them, I can't stand none of them. Okay? Can't stand them. I like Pastor Gilbert sometimes. Okay? And Chris is okay every now and then. Sometimes, if it's the 15th and the 30th. Okay? But at the end of the day, when we all fall out, whatever we went through behind the scenes, what I can say about this group, and we've had some turnover, when we sit at this table, I can listen to the common sense that comes over this table, and I can figure out who voting with me, where I got a shaky vote. But I know these guys are trying to vote their best conscious decision that will be the most positive outcome for our kids. And that right there has made it so worth it. So when I sit over here, I'm so relaxed. I'm so cool because my thought is we're going to get at least 4 votes for our babies. And usually 6 or 7 votes. That is so nice to be able to say, well, I know he ain't finna go against these babies and make them start. Now, now I'm mad at her and her and her. But what I do know is they ain't finna vote against this lunch program. It make a difference because I've sat at this table and stuff that seemed like it was so common, so simple. This ain't no hard decision. Do we want the babies to wake up and have feather pillows or cardboard pillows? And you know they're going to say feather. And then some damn body vote for cardboard. You're like, what in the hell? So right now I'm in a place of calm. I'm so disappointed when I figured out, because I had been worrying a mess out of Danielle, like, Danielle, that ain't how it goes. And then it dawned on me, I had an epiphany in the middle of the night. And I called Danielle. I said, Danielle, I've been thinking about it. They right. We got 5 seats finna be up. Because my thought was, I'm going to hightail it up out of here. I ain't going to look back. I'm going to burn rubber up out of here because I'm so exhausted from fighting. And then I thought about everything I fought for. Yeah. And I'm like, damn, am I finna just, because I'm dry. They done sucked me dry. But I'm like, I ain't dry out for nothing. And my work has not came into fruition. But I can see the manifestation. It's right there. All I got to do is faint not. But my time, like Dr. Joyce said, time is not on my side. So I have to come to this board table a bad day because I'm so tired. I have to be up at 4 a.m. going to work. I left here at 11:30 last night. I went to work and I was on time. And I'm back here again and I have my time. I don't know if I'm coming or going some days. I swear I don't. I'm calling people like, is the meeting today? Pastor Gilbert, the reason I love Pastor Gilbert, because he got to tell me what time all my board meetings are, all of them, not just this one, all of them. And so with that being said, charge it to my head and not my heart, because my intentions is to give my last breath fighting for my community and these kids. And the thought that what we fought through for, we might not be able to get our breakthrough, but I'm going to bind it up in Jesus' name. But the thought of us not making it for these babies, it's just literally more than I can stand, because the struggle has been so tremendous. The price, even though it's not financially, the price has been one of the, other than losing loved ones, this has been the highest price I have ever paid with no return, just to hopefully see some light at the other side for somebody else. I have my education and 4 years until retirement, but I cannot leave Flint and these kids in this district in shambles like they have been.
Yes.
It is inhumane.
Yes.
And feeling that way, the reason I'm crying, because I know it's a charge on my life and an assignment on me that I don't want at this point, but I am here for a reason. And my assignment is not complete. So weary as I may be, and as selfish as I want to be, I know as a decent human being, it is not the right thing for me to do. So now, am I back on the line? Probably. And it sucks. And I'm sorry. But
your work's not done yet.
I know it.
And you got your well right here that you can tap from.
Well, y'all need to yay and let's get it going.
We got to get her vision. She had this great vision for Northwest on the north side. So here's where we don't want to, I can't get nobody else to see her vision. And we kind of like the Supremes, we're going to fall out. But we, in order to make a good choir, we got to get back together. So that's the problem that, that this board is having, that we're sharing all these deep conversations.
No, that's great. This kind of
and at the end, my biggest fear when I get through with this project, I don't want to look down November. I ain't trying to build, I'm using incorrect language. I'm not trying to build no relationship with no new board member. I don't mean no harm.
It's hard to build it, ain't it?
Yeah, I don't want to go through that no more because I took a big hit. You know, even when death was in my house, I couldn't show my feelings. I couldn't say anything because I'm so busy here. I don't know when it's Monday. I don't know when it's Wednesday, but I just say that this is a passion for us, and
Yes.
that's something that we have to talk about. We get through the trust, and I think we done broke that barrier, and going forward, this is first time we ever been able to go forward a little bit.
Yeah, sounds
And
like it.
I'm just gonna, you know,
You don't want
I
to go
just
back
don't want to start
forming.
all over again.
You-
If
you don't-
I had made up in my mind, if I had to start all over, then I was gonna step down because I can't do it. You
Yeah.
know,
It's tiring.
I don't think I want to build that relationship, whether it's good or bad. It's not bad. It's just disagreement. I don't want to build that energy up anymore.
Sure.
You know,
You've moved so far
Mm-hmm.
into now norming that going back to forming is just
I'm not gonna do
it's
it.
gut wrenching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And
So-
knowing with the money that's coming in here too, and knowing that the vultures, what really is grieving me, I know
they waiting.
because I know what has happened in this district when we were piss poor, okay?
Mhm.
So knowing that we have the kind of money that we have, I know that the vultures, they swarming,
They waited.
and they wait. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And they want that bag. And when I tell you I didn't sleep a many a nights because I said, I'll die before I get them this money. I made it up in my mind. They not going to steal from this babies while I'm woke. That's the money. That's part of the money. That's right. And y'all know I always speak about that land.
That land.
Because I'm going to tell you something. Land is one thing that I don't believe God going to make no more of for us. I think this is it.
It's valuable.
It is worth its weight in gold. And this district, even though they painting us in the red, we are rich right now.
Yes, we are.
We are rich.
28. Yes,
We just
are.
got to figure out how to liquidate, how to turn
Yes.
that into liquid cash.
Yes.
And they know that we slow on the coming out the clutch, coming out the pocket, and they already rolling fast.
So when the both max together, it works.
So before we head down a different road, I'd kind of like to hear Chris's perspective or Adrian's.
Sure. So my perspective, you know, I let me put it this way. I'm in the race car and I'm at the starting line and I'm redlining and my tires are burning. And then I got to get out and get into a Chevette and take off. I want to move forward much quicker than what we are, just because time is of the essence, and time is of the essence in many ways. The ESSER money, and to get things done for the students. So that's where I'm at. I want to move quicker than what we are as a board, and I don't say that negatively, but just as you know, I've been a proponent of having meetings, more meetings, get our committee meetings going, and that's how we can get things done. We just can't have our monthly board meetings and one day decide how to spend $100 million. It's not going to happen in a 1 hour time frame. So you need many meetings, many hours to put into it. So sometimes I want to say under storming, the seeking clarity on team goals and vision and how we can accomplish that in a quicker fashion than what we are right now. And again, I don't say it negatively about the board, but just I'm ready to go. I want to have a meeting tomorrow and talk about where are we going to spend money and how, and let's look at all these buildings, and do they need to be torn down, and how much do they cost to be torn down, and after we tear them down, what's the value of the land, and can we rehab them, and how much will it cost? And I want to collaborate with, say, the city of Flint. They want community centers. We have empty school buildings. It seems like there's the potential to be working together and using the same fund, the funds that they have through the ARP and our ESSER money. And you take care of an empty building that's dead and dying, and dead or dying or dead.
Yeah, lots of opportunity for collaboration and
Right.
things that can improve
But
for students.
as the city of Flint spends their money and we spend ours, then there's no money left to collaborate on things. So
Adrian, how about you?
Yep. So the way I see things currently is probably on the back half of storming and on the cusp of norming, right? And even as recent as yesterday, right? So when I joined in January of 21, it was an interesting time, right? Because, we all run for school districts with these, great ambitions, but even coming into the space with all the chaos. And you can talk to the people on the outside looking in, even before I took my first vote. And they're like, you already know how this board is going to shake up, right? I see the 4-3 and I'm just like, whoa, what's, not knowing everything that's going on, right? So I saw the chaos, but, as we're going through, again, this process that we talked about, I constantly remembered, the phrase that a smooth sea never made a skillful sailor, right? So yeah, we've had some trials and tribulations and some come to Jesus moments, but where we're at is I feel like we're establishing the structure that we've always talked about, right? Like last night at our meeting, we took a first vote on moving a strategic plan to, our next board meeting. I want to say this is the first time that I've been a part of this board that we've done something like that, right? To establish a goal and a vision, because before that, it felt like we were going back to Chris' analogy of a car. I'm hopping in a car going to a new destination, but not knowing how the heck we're going to get there, right? There's no GPS to tell me how to get there. Strategic plan still has to have some work done, but at least it lays that groundwork, right? And now we have clarity as it relates to our roles and responsibility. And now that trust is coming in, because what I didn't hear a couple of months back before Kevin got into the role is, hey, a uniformity in terms of I trust the superintendent, right? I may not know everything and I may not agree with X, Y, and Z, but you know what? If our superintendent says it, I'm going to be on his team and I'm going to move forward. Like I never heard that part of the conversation at the board table. So it's like the old saying of we're not where we used to be, but we also are not where we need to be as well, right? But we're getting there, right? And we're moving. And that's why I say, again, I think we're wrapping up within the storming phase and on the cusp of norming. And I hear Pastor Gilbert as clear as day. This is how we're going to do things now, right? We can't continue to operate how we've done in the past. And again, now we're having structures to come into place. And again, you're getting uniformity from boards as it relates to, the decisions that we have to make.
Thank you. Kevin, how about you? Last but not least.
I don't know if I can come behind that.
Oh, if you can what?
Come behind all that.
Oh,
I have to agree with Board Member Walker. I'm getting emotional too. I saw the forming, and it didn't feel good. But as I got to be able to have one-on-ones, my spirit has always been to get to know people for myself. And being able to talk to each particular board member about their passion and understanding what they want to see. And then going back to where my heart is with children, seeing smiles on faces and seeing children have opportunities that I know I had growing up. How do we get past all of this chaos? And how do I get, I'm going to be straight clear with you all. How do I get people in this central office that has been bitter because of things that have happened over the years? How do I get principals who's been bitter and teachers who've been bitter over things that have happened for so many years and money has been taken and all of these things? How do we get there if we're forming and constantly going through the chaos, and you said it, we are the face, right? And so people watching us for that year that it was difficult, we had to get there. We had to go there, had to deal with it. I had talked to the administration many times about chill out, listen, calm down, and let it do what it's going to do, right? Instead of fighting, going back and forth with board members, that's not going to solve it. And so how do for me, the forming was really difficult. It was difficult. But after some things changed and some moves made, and you don't see some normal, well, let me stop there. Things began to look up, and we got to get everyone else there too. But if we're not there, it won't happen with the administrative team. It won't happen with the central office. It won't happen with principals. It was a lot of, this person can call a board member and they don't really know what they're talking about. And a board member will make a vote based on somebody said in the school district. I've seen it all. And now it's more of, this team is coming together and we're talking. And we're asking questions to one another. And then decisions are being made based on that. That wasn't happening before. And to see that come into fruition, I would definitely say we are on the move out of storming. And right there, I'm gonna use your word, on the cusp. And I think my emotion is the fact that I didn't see myself here at this time. It wasn't even a thought for me. And I didn't see what was gonna happen. But this calling and this time, I told board members, we have to get a shovel in the ground. You know, I keep saying that. I really don't care how we do it, but I think this 10 months is critical to my son's education, who goes to Doyle Ryder, to Quinn's education. I know the kids, and to the ALA kids, it's crucial because we don't know what's coming in November. And so I have to take advantage, we have to take advantage of the fierce urgency of now. And so, to make a long story short, I would say we are definitely on the cusp. I can definitely see some performing. I just want to say that. Like a year ago, we couldn't see any bullets in performing. Like, we couldn't see that. And I clearly didn't understand everybody. But now I can see healthy conflict allows for collaboration. I can see that now. And as I would say, we're on that cusp of norming, but I definitely can see some bullets in performing.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the healthy conflict, right? Allows for collaboration, because oftentimes when I have these conversations with boards, they're surprised to see that underperforming. That to them, they initially thought, well, there would be no conflict if we were performing. And that's not true. There will never be no conflict. Again, it goes back to, how do we do it though, right? Are we having that conflict? Are we having good, honest conversations? Are we being respectful in the way that we're talking to each other? Are we listening to understand when we have differences at the table, right? And the best of teams, operating in that fourth column most of the time, are still going to have that conflict occasionally, and should. It's one of the reasons boards were created, right? To have the various perspectives, to bring all of that together, to get to good solutions. I don't know if any of you have ever participated in some of those activities where you're given a list of items, and let's say you're in an earthquake and you're in a building and you only have 10 minutes to gather things to get out. And so they give you this list and you're supposed to rank them. right? What's most important? You can only take a certain number. And then you get a score, right? As an individual, what you would pick. And then you start grouping people together, right? And I could give it to you, and the three of you would be a group. And what do you think happens to your scores simply by putting you together and having conversation? Yeah, and the scores go up
Yeah.
because you get the best thinking of everybody, right? I might think, hey, we better take those snack cookies over there because I'm going to be hungry. And Yvonne's going to say,
Bring the
hey,
matches.
Hey, yeah, bring the matches, or hey, we probably need water. As
Water.
much as we think we need cookies, water's probably more important, right? And so you get that richness. And that's what's so great about having this group of 8. Because if you allow for that good, healthy dialogue and conflict, then you do get to good decisions. Absolutely. And I'm excited for you. The fact that even that you are identifying where you are and being able to admit, hey, we still have some work to do, right? But we see what's on the other side. And now that we've had a taste of how it can be when we are working well together, we don't want to go back, right? There's always going to be some movement between those categories. On any given day, on any given topic, right? We're going to be, more effective as a team than on other days. But as long as we're always all saying we're striving for the same thing, we're striving to be our absolute best, because that's what we have to be in order to get this hard work done. That's the key, right? There's a few pieces that I think are really helpful to continue moving you in that direction. One of them is assuming positive intent, right? Again, we're all going to have those different opinions that we bring to the table, but when we listen with the ear of positive intent, we listen very differently, right? I don't think that Danielle is just saying that to be difficult. I'm going to say, Danielle has a reason she feels that way, and I need to understand it better because it's going to help us in the long run, right? She's not trying to create a problem. She's really trying to help us get to see something that's important in her perspective or the experience that she brings, right? And so always sort of stopping yourself when you feel yourself going down that other road, right? And saying, nope, I'm not going to allow myself to go there. I'm going to assume positive intent first. The second one is giving grace. Every one of us on any given day is not going to bring our best self to the table, right? There's a lot of other stuff out there that we're all dealing with. And being able to continue building that trust and understanding when someone steps away, right, from the behaviors that we come to expect together of each other, and then being there to support each other through whatever that might be. Calling out the behavior in a very positive way, away from the table, non-confrontational. Hey, Laura, last night when we were having that discussion, I kind of felt like you were disrespecting me the way you jumped on my comments or whatever. Maybe I'm mistaken. I'm sure you didn't mean that, but help me understand, right? How we got to that place, right? And so you're being vulnerable enough to reach out to each other when those things happen, and supportive of the team by making sure that we stick together through those tough times, right? And we're all going to make mistakes. We're all not going to be our best selves. I've said some things at the board table that I think back over my 15 years and I think, man, I wish I had done some things differently, right? Can't come back and change them, but I can be better going forward, right? I can help others in their struggles to be their best. So those are two things that I think really change the way you move through it. One other one, and then I'm going to let Yvonne say something if she wants, is that, and Joyce, you mentioned this, the only person we really can control is ourselves. You said it in a different way, but I think you meant the same thing, right? And I really want to encourage each of you to think to yourself, is what I'm about to do or say whether you're at the board table or somewhere else. Is it going to hurt the work that we're doing? Does it have that potential? Or is it going to help the work we're doing? Right? Because we get so many opportunities to do or say things that can either be a benefit or not. That can either move you, keep moving you towards the right-hand side, or push you back to that point. Right? Those parking lot conversations, whatever, right? Really just, again, taking that second in your mind and saying to yourself, is what I'm about to do or say helpful or hurtful?
So I'm not going to pontificate on what you should or should not do, to tell you the truth. I just want to tell you that I was listening, and I think you're a lot further towards performing than I think you are. Because I'm hearing healthy conversation, I'm hearing honesty, I'm hearing from the soul, from the heart. And if you're not leading from the heart, then you shouldn't be here. Because the babies need you to lead from the heart. And I'm hearing a lot of really good, healthy conversation. I had 9 board members in Lansing, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. They were the best people. We had some struggles, but man, they all wanted the best for the district. So what Debbie said about, making sure that, are you hurting or are you helping? Is this about me having to have a powerful voice at the table? Does it have to be my idea, or is it our idea? I think that is a real big struggle with people who are elected or appointed to these positions, because you are, I don't know how your city council is here in Flint.
Please don't go down there.
Okay. Can you edit that part? The technology guy, can you cut that? No, I'm just saying, you are the most powerful elected body in the city of Flint. And so you always have to keep thinking that, am I doing this for me and what I want to get across, or is this our collective vision for the district? Because everyone's watching and making sure that you're functional, you're doing it for the babies, and you're not in it for yourselves. Because I've heard people say to some board members that I had, oh, you're saying that because you're going to run for state rep. Like, oh, that's why you're here? Okay, that shouldn't be why you're here. You need to be here for the babies. Now, later on, if you want to run for state rep, that's your business. But right now, whatever you're saying has to be about the district. So I'm hearing that from every one of you. I'm hearing that. Maybe you're not hearing it from yourselves, but gosh, Kevlin, listen, do you need an interim anything over in central office?
Hey, you're working with me.
We don't need to add to the budget.
You don't need me? Okay. All right.
I would love to have you, but
No, you guys
we
are
have to
great.
use ESSER funds.
You guys are great. You guys are great.
So I heard you mention leading from the heart. Isn't there a book about that?
No. I just wrote a book. I published a book in March about leadership, leading from the heart. So she's just capping on me about that. Amazon, I have my own ISBN number. Can you believe that? I was like, I have an ISBN number? When did that happen? I wasn't even invited to the prom. How did I get an ISBN number?
So I want to be clear why you asked
Huh?
if there's a position.
I say what?
I want to be clear why you asked was there a position.
You know I can't do it. I already told my husband I had.
No, I just want to understand why you asked that question.
No, because I think this is like Miss Laura said, Sister Laura. You are in a moment. You are at the crossroads. I think there's a famous blues singer saying about the crossroads. Is that who it was? That you disappeared. Dangerous crossroads. Yeah, you are at a crossroads here in Flint. And I love to be involved in crossroads. It sure is, but you know what? The other side is worth it.
That's right.
It is. It's a nexus. It's a nexus of then and next. So you guys are good.
So some of you might be thinking, there's a lot of slides left in this handout and it's already 8 o'clock. But what I'm going to
Is
tell
it
you,
really?
it is. I just looked. I thought I'm going to check and see where we are. And you know what? I don't even care if we get through all the slides, because I think the conversation that you all have been having and this opportunity to share and learn from each other is just as important as any content on these slides. Might sound a little weird,
More.
but more important, really. Yeah, this is your opportunity, really, to make that difference, to head, to pick one of those paths, right?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So listening to Mr. Del Moroni, knowing that, and also Mr. Walker, knowing that the strategic plan is something that our board is voting on, right? And we have a framework, and our board has really never had, I don't know if you have, Carol or Danielle, but really never had the training to kind of, how do we mesh this work into that? How do we, even though we have the strategic plan, how do our board come along to really know and understand that what we have is good, or what we need, we need to make amendments, we need to make changes? Is this something we can do regularly with you all to kind of move us along as we do the work?
Absolutely. I mean, you've already heard Yvonne. She wants to be a part of your team anyway. So, I mean,
I do strategic planning specifically with MASB in districts. Yeah.
And so we want to be able to support you in whatever you need from us, right? So whether it's, evenings like this where we come in and have some good conversation around different topics that support the work you do, by all means, we are happy to make that happen. I do think, honestly, a one-time sit and get is not effective, right? I mean, it's this kind of thing that you have to sort of embed in your practices on some sort of regular basis that will help keep you moving in the right direction, right? And there's a number of things we can do to really help us zero in on the places that we need to work on most to keep you moving in that direction. Joyce?
I think because I'm a public management, I do public management and public administration, and I do strategic plans and different things for different companies. I think what we need to do as a board is to find out where everybody at with their understanding of strategic plan.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, I don't like talking to someone about a strategic plan that probably at a level 1 or level 2, and I'm just wasting their time. If you understand what I'm saying. And I just think that the board as a whole, we need to know where they at in understanding the strategic plan. What is that, what does a strategic plan does? What is its function as a board, and why do we really need it? And here we are, 5 years without a strategic plan for this district?
Well, that's another thing. The official strategic plan or the unofficial strategic plan or the master plan that has been underlying the city of Flint. And so we've got a hidden agenda that's been influencing Flint and the school board for a couple of decades now. And so on top of that, we've got a school board now that has to generate a strategic plan to sort of overcome that planning that's been put in motion. So not to hijack everybody, but 1976, we were one of the top segregated school districts in the country. I mean, it's documented by historical facts.
Yeah, ergo Judge Fox's DSEG orders all throughout the state.
Yes. And so after that point, so we've got a foundation that starts in the late 70s where planning started for the Flint schools that brought us to this point. So we need to have a strategic plan with an understanding of that unofficial one that has put us in the position that we're in. And so I'm thinking, you guys are great resources, and you can't do like you said, a one session. I would love to have, I know you guys are tired. I know this is a lot, but I would love to have regular sessions to do strategic plan work to. Yeah, no, I know. I'm just, but what I'm saying is like, I'm getting excited here. So when I get excited, I kind of like should agree to do things like, and everyone's like, I mean, so you mentioned like reading. I would love to get a copy of your book, Leading with the Heart. Maybe we could read it together. I also, God, I beg you, you guys, please read Demolition Means Progress. Can we read it as a board? Please. Please. Okay, but I mean, huh?
I'm not reading that no more. You guys can get your book club.
Can I just give you, like, when I took over Lansing, this is just sort of a short anecdote, but when I took over the Lansing school, or was asked to come in for 82 days, we were in a multi-million-dollar operational deficit. I mean, like 20-some million-dollar operation. We were on the verge of being taken over by the state. You all recognize this story, right? Multiple schools in AYP, high priority, people in our district all over the place, people leaving, flood, bleeding students, 400-500 kids a year gone, no one coming in, facilities, like all empty facilities. So we were going to close a high school. Which one was it going to be? Every alumni on earth was, upset about it. And so we did a strategic plan with Debbie. That's how we met. With MASB. And the board chose MASB to do the strategic plan. I didn't really have anything to say about it, but it guided us for the next 5 years. And it was the best, can I say this? It was the best cover for decisions that we were going to make because it was in the strategic plan. Yep. And everybody had input. There were focus sessions, there were surveys, there were the strategic plan. The development of that plan took about, maybe 7-8 sessions with MASB to put that together. And then the goals, the vision, the mission, the goal statements, and then superintendent and our team, we put together the implementation of that. And so the board, I would bring quarterly updates to the board. Where were we with accomplishing these goals that the board set out? And every 3 months, I came to the board with where we were at in accomplishing the goals. And so it developed the budget for us. It drove the budget decisions, because if it wasn't in the strategic plan, why are we spending money on it? And so it was a great convening piece for the community. The community also saw what we were doing and knew what we were doing. And I've just now been involved with 4 or 5 districts now in strategic planning. And it's the glue that brings it all together, so that special interests don't dominate the direction of the district, that the collective dominates and takes charge of the collective of the district. I don't know anything about the 76 plan. I'm sure, Lansing had its own underground story going on too. But, my choice is I don't like anyone to write my biography. I'm writing my own biography, I don't need your house on the hill. I got my own house on the hill. So I'm kind of like, whatever they say, whatever, we're going to put our plan together. So that's what we did.
I laughed because you're speaking Laura's language. That's why I did that. And I thought that's what we were here to do, to build our strategic plan.
She has a better vocabulary than I do, Ms. Carroll.
And I would like to bring to the board, because I brought my building utilization book.
Yeah,
because I didn't come to play. So, my thought to the board is this. If we vote to do this, which I think we should, which is what I thought we had voted on, which is because you guys know I was fighting tooth and nail. Can we do like a session once a week to get this done? Because we up against time. Yes, we up against time.
Me and Miss Dare talked about that a couple times. This is just the first step in getting to
Right.
that. So it's coming and it's going to happen because I know the board wants that. So we had some conversations, but we're moving in that direction. It's coming soon, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we wanted to see how this evening went, how engaged you felt you would be in the work, because this kind of work does take board engagement. I'm not sure on a weekly session level.
It felt like that.
So do we take what we have and you take it, and I think I sent that to you. Did I?
Yeah, I think I've seen it at one point, at least
So
somewhere along the line.
So how do we, well, I guess you'll get to that. I
Yeah,
don't want to put the cart before the horse.
And I know you and I have had conversations, as we did, the three of us as well, about how do we take the work, because Kevin has some concerns about some of the work that's already been put together and honoring that work of your administrators and your educators, and not wanting to say, hey, that was great, but, and moving somewhere else. And so how would we do that if it's something that this governance team wants to talk about? And we would have to figure that out, right? I mean, it wouldn't be the typical process. It would have to be something that was a little bit redesigned if we were to help you with some of the strategic planning pieces. But we certainly can come back and have additional conversations with the board, even around the idea of what do we as a board do with a strategic plan, right? Like Yvonne said, that whole idea of how do we monitor progress, and how do we use it as a guidepost for decision making, and how do we explain that to our community, that here's why we're making the decisions we're making. It's because we've identified as a collective that this is the direction we're headed in, right? And we're all going to play our part in making that happen, regardless of what hat we're wearing.
Adrian, you had a question.
Yeah, I saw his hand up there.
Chris, mine's is going to switch from strategic planning. Is yours strategic planning related?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm just going to go back to page 1. What is a strategic plan? Who develops it? How long is it good for? Who has a say in it?
Great questions.
Yeah, they're all good questions. Let's see if I can remember them all.
Yep.
So,
What is it?
what is it? It's a plan for the future at its very core. So if you were to think, I like to use this sample, and some of us are older than others in the room, but think about if we were going on a trip tomorrow, right? And we decided that, where would you like to go? Somebody pick a destination.
Vegas.
Okay.
Ooh, Capri. Good choice.
I've never been there.
That's a heck of a plan, though.
So would we just get up and go tomorrow? No. We would put some plans in place to get there, right? We'd have to have a budget. We'd have to make reservations. There's all kinds of plans that would go into a trip like that. That's what strategic planning is, right? What's our vision for this district? What do we want to look like and be at a point in the future, which is usually 5 years? That's about as long as you can predictably plan out. And as we've seen in the last couple of years, sometimes things change for us, right? And we have to adapt to that. But typically about a 5-year span is how long your strategic plan should last.
And who develops it?
So who develops it looks different in different places, right? There's not just a one size fits all. There's not just a one way of getting it done. MASB believes in a highly inclusive process where you reach out in multiple methods to get input from all of the various groups in your community, including the board, right? You have a voice in that as well. Your staff has a voice, your community has a voice, your students have a voice. Like, it should be anyone who wants to provide us with some feedback as we make a plan, then they absolutely belong in the process.
So there's an electronic survey on SurveyMonkey for anybody to use. We do input sessions. I've done many input sessions. My favorite ones are with the students, of course. They're so smart. where I meet with people face to face or virtual. I've done virtual input sessions, as has Debbie. And we ask them several questions. What do they see? What are the opportunities the district has? What are some of the challenges? What are they most proud of? What's keeping them from improving the way they imagine, and then what's their vision? So we ask those questions, and people give input, and then I take. I'm just saying what I do.
That's okay.
Okay, I take all the input, I aggregate it, I look at frequency. I take a look at the number of times people answer the questions, or have the same answers, and then I compile a report and give it to MASB, and then we give it to the district. That's multiple. I could go through 1,500 surveys looking for responses. So it is truly a large community effort. And then there can be, if the board wants, a special group put together of businesses or faith-based organizations or the city or whatever to provide specific special group input as well. So that's the who.
Yeah. So that's the who. And then what we typically do is bring this information, the feedback, along with some hard data.
Demographics.
Yep, demographics, academic achievement, personal and finance, all those kinds of pieces of information that kind of help start to frame what we want to be.
The context, yeah.
And we bring that together in a retreat where we now invite some specific people to the table, usually a group of around 45, inclusive of the board, because it's important for you to be a part of that exchange of ideas. And it's at that point that you usually determine your mission, vision, your belief statements, because you have to know why you're doing what you're doing, right? And that's where those beliefs or values come in. And then the goals that we would set for the next 5 years. If there's already some work in place that you've been using or has been developed, then we would want to take a look at that and figure out how we might bring that forward into the conversation, whether it's at that level or more staff oriented in the next phase. But we would certainly want to honor that work that's been done.
And other districts have had previous strategic plans that we've been incorporated.
And so out of that day, and it's a 8-hour day, lots of excitement, you go home with what I call this odd mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. You can't describe it until you've participated in it, right?
I want that.
And so then we come back and we work with staff specifically. So we take what we want and then we work on how we're going to make it happen. And that's a staff function, right? Boards are about what we want, and then staff is about how we get it done. So we come back and we work with staff, and then we start breaking it down into manageable pieces to help move it forward. And we talk about things like, how does the board monitor that progress? What looks right for this governance team? And how do we keep it front and center in our decision-making at this level? And how do we do that at the various levels within the organization so that it truly is what everybody's working on, what everybody owns, and what everybody wants to see move forward?
Just this morning, I finished I'd call it a PERT chart, which is, this is our objective. I worked with staff at a district. This is our objective, and what do we need to do over the next 4 quarters in order to get to accomplish this objective? And so, you lay it out, and that becomes the work of the superintendent and your staff. And then that's what you report back to the board in terms of where, what progress you're making. For me, it was the best thing that we could do for Lansing. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Did I
take
get
that
all
away
the
from-
questions?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yep.
Okay.
So if I may, I don't know if we have any more strategic planning questions, but while we had you and while we were talking about the conference.
I just have.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ms.
This is, one of the questions I have about a strategic plan is that for some reason, we done got away from SWOT analysis. And don't you think that's kind of important now in a time that we're living in, that we begin to do more SWOT analysis? Even when I'm looking at this one right here, and it'll save a lot of time. Don't you think, if we got back into that mode? But I have seen corporation and company that don't want even to get into that area of it. But this is a nonprofit organization. Don't you think that we should have that word out there?
Yeah, and so you're using that phrase, right? And actually the questions that Yvonne talked about really are that, right? What are the strengths of the district? What are the areas for improvement or the weaknesses? The threats are what we call the barriers. And then the opportunities sort of flesh themselves out in multiple places along the way, including that vision.
And then if you look at our strategic plan, you can see that strategy are in there, in that plan, you identify those, but you just don't hear that analysis.
You don't use
spoken
that
well.
nomenclature? You don't hear that nomenclature in that plan?
Not in the,
okay.
you don't hear that conversation. And another conversation I said that we have with strategic plan, because of nonprofit, you have to have partnership. And there's a weakness in having that because there's no relationship with the board and the partners.
Yeah.
They seem to be on this side of the fence, we on that side of the fence. And maybe we need to have more workshop where, now you're talking about lack of trust, it's just that partnership. So how could we bridge that gap between the board and partners and getting the partners to realize that you got to respect the board in order for it to move forward. And if you don't respect the board, then you're not going to get much done. But I don't see many training in that. And this is a new area. It's not a new area, but we have a new way of thinking. And you got these old thinking partners. And so maybe we have to, even with these partners in here, there's bitterness thinking towards them, and probably vice versa towards them, because some of the things that has happened because of the decision we made has affected my personal life. So maybe we can look at those type of workshop or relationship, because to attack a person personal because I made a decision here, and the partners have this power to do that. That's the kind of conversation we also need to have, is bridging that gap with partners. Yeah, you might have the power, but you don't have the power to come into my personal world and try to destroy me either.
Yeah. So if it sounds like partnerships would be a major goal area for community and communications and community engagement, which is one. They're basically the 5 areas are academics and programs, our strategic planning process, learning environment, communication and community engagement, personnel and leadership, and operations. Those are the 5 basic areas of the strategic plan. So it sounds like that would be a major goal area in the communications and community engagement. And then the implementation plan would talk about training, about a time for workshops and things like that.
Just like we came in here, we sit down, we start out with a model, trust. Well, maybe the partners need to be over there, and let's have this same type of training. Let's see what the results will come out to, because they seem to need a little bit more training as well, because they don't trust us from some of the things that they do and say. And then now we look at this strategic plan, and these partners are in the strategic plan. So there got to be some type of way where, just like you come here to bridge the gap between trust, maybe we need to look at bridging that gap between trust with partners.
Yeah, and that was why when Yvonne mentioned as well, we have sort of groups that we typically meet with, staff and community and whatever. And then there are times when we do put together specific input sessions, based on a district's need, right? And there's, special, sort of makeup, because every district's a little different. Because I think in your district, we even did like a parent council. You had a parent council.
Yep.
And so she specifically wanted to get their voice. And then we met with union leadership.
Yep.
Was another one. So we do some of those specialized groups up front, right? So that they see that you're reaching out to them on the front end, right? And then we look for opportunities of involvement throughout. And then you get to what Yvonne was talking about, where it could potentially be a goal area that there might be some activities around.
So maybe that's a role for Mr. Jones.
Actually, I think in our strategic plan, one of the goal areas was an intergovernmental committee which were representatives from our school board and representative of the city council would meet on a monthly basis to talk about shared ideas and shared vision. It came out of the strategic plan, now that I'm thinking of it.
That's a while ago that we did that.
It was a while ago.
I'd just like to add a caveat. That's great, community partners, but our community partners, many of them have acted as colonial overseers, and they're not partners. And if they want to be on board with the educational vision, it gets back to what we were talking about in the beginning. This is about children. This is about families. This is about communities. Some of these outside interests, they don't belong in our strategic plan necessarily. And I hate to kind of put that hard line out there, but some of these, as Joyce was saying, that we've got like a local mafia that's running this town in terms of, ideology and the way that power structures have been structured and continue to operate. And our school system has been used to reproduce inequality and specifically like segregation. I mean, it's well documented. And so I don't want a partnership with that. So that's not, to me, that's not on the table, and they don't get an equal say that the students get. So
You get to choose your partners.
Right.
So,
Adrian's been patient.
no, you're good. Yeah. No, you're fine. We have on a 9. So while you're here and we're talking on the topic of governance, something else that we talk about at the board table that I would love your perspective on is bylaws. And it's bylaws from a couple of different angles, right? So I believe that a lot of board have, is it Neola bylaws, and then some boards come up with their own bylaws. So just interested from your perspective from that lens, and then also recommendations for how often bylaws should be revisited, because again, as we're talking about governance, it's important that we're all on the same page for how we operate at this table and as a district.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, you'll see that on a slide, if you skip a few ahead, there's 4 things that based on that Iowa Lighthouse research says there's 4 things that boards really need as a sort of a governance framework. And the first one is unity of purpose, and we've just been talking about that, right? That's what a strategic plan provides, is that unity of purpose. The second piece is around a clear understanding of our roles and responsibilities, both as a board and as a superintendent, and how they're very different, right? The role of a board is oversight and governance versus the superintendent, who has management and operational responsibilities. And there's some specifics that you can even read through in here that we won't spend a lot of time on tonight, but we could potentially have more conversation around that when if we come back again. The next one is around positive governing body culture. Those are norms. And I know that you all have some agreed upon standards of practice, and that would be something along those lines, right? And I see that they were adopted back in 2001 and reaffirmed in 2007. And if they haven't been looked at since then, and especially because there have been so many new members added to the team over time, it would be our recommendation that some work should be done on those norms. What are the norms that this group, that this governance team feels are appropriate in its work together? And some of them may say, and some of them might not, and you might add some others, right? And I think there's some work to be done around developing the right norms for this group. And then also talking about what do we do when people step away from those norms? How do we handle that? So that they become something that is really living, right? All the time, that we're abiding by and we're seeing value in using as we move forward. And then that 4th piece is exactly what you were talking about, Adrian. It's about supportive structures that we put in place. The first level of that being policies. And yes, Neola is a policy company, and probably at least 3/4 of the districts in the state of Michigan use Neola at this point. And then there are some other districts who either have a law firm work with them to develop their policies, or they do it in-house, right, in district, and then a law firm simply, reviews them to make sure that you're not, that they're legal, basically, if you will. So there's choices around that. What's nice about having Neola as a policy partner is that they're constantly looking out on the horizon. They're making sure that any new legislation that happens, they're, incorporating into those updates that are provided regularly. And then there's also some options that they provide to you that boards choose, which, option A or B, right, which makes the most sense for their district. The one probably downside to having a organization like Neola do that for you is that I do believe boards have stepped away from their role as policymakers, right? And that's a core function of what a board is about, is setting up those structures that your superintendent and your staff work within, so that everyone is very clear. And it also provides, part of your role as a board is to reduce risk and liability to the district. And those policies help do that, right? And having some regular conversation around what our policies are and our practices and saying, oh, there's a gap there. We probably should make sure we take care of that. Either we need to change our policy to match our process or vice versa, right? And then that helps to reduce that liability. So even if you use an outside organization, be it Neola or a law firm, to develop your policies, boards should still be having some regular conversation around what those policies are, having a regular process for review, much like a district has for curriculum, right? You put it on a cycle. Nobody says you have to do the whole policy manual by next week, right? You're not even going to do your best work if you tried to do that. So you set up a cycle of review, and maybe the first section is what we work on this year, right? And then next year we do the next section until we get through the whole book. And then of course we start it all over again, right? So that we're constantly looking at those things, making sure they're still pertinent and making sure that, those practices and policies match. Bylaws are a portion of those policies. And bylaws are sort of the next level down, right, in that structure. And they speak to how the board does their work. So, a structure that specifically supports your work. Things like how often you have meetings and, how your elections are scheduled, who your officers are, those kinds of things all fall under policies or under bylaws. And then there's some pieces of that we also call, and sometimes you might hear it referred to in other CBA courses or other readings, where they talk about board operating procedures or board protocols. And those are ways that are helpful for groups like yours to get the work done, right? Agreements that you come together to decide. So for instance, around communication. I would imagine if I went around the table and asked each one of you your preferred frequency and method of communication with your superintendent, I would get 7 different responses, right? But your superintendent wasn't hired by 7 individuals. They're hired by one board. And so it's prudent upon us board members to say, we're going to come together around a process so that Kevlin only has one process to deal with. Some of us are going to give and take in that, right? I might wish a little more or a little less or prefer a different method, but I'm going to collaborate with the group so that Kevlin has one way. And you're going to have some very specifics in there around routine, communication or urgent or emergency. So there's some, nuances to it, but it's about coming together as a group of 8 and determining how are we going to do the work together to make us our best. Right? Communication is one example of that. We've got some handouts that we can leave with you that you can kind of look at a bit around the roles and responsibilities, around some suggested norms, and even a list of ideas around those protocols. And as you look at them, I would say, think about the things that might have given this group heartburn over time. Like, gosh, we didn't really work so well in that area, right? Like communication. And maybe we could have a better understanding if we came together around something. Or handling complaints, whether it be from staff or community members. That's usually another area that creates conflict between a board and superintendent, because everybody tries to handle it differently. And so coming together around, nope, here's the way we've all agreed that we're going to handle this kind of issue, right? I'm just using that one as an example. And so I would say, you know, there's lots of different ways to go about tackling those things. Some of that could be future session work. Some of it could be subcommittee work if you typically use a subcommittee structure. But those four things, really addressing and making sure we're good and solid in those four areas, again, helping you move towards that performing and staying there. Chris?
Should those be separate and distinct documents? So someone could come to us and say, show me your policy, and we could give them, show me your bylaws, and we could give that, as opposed to all clustered together.
Yeah, so your policies are, you know, everybody typically used to call them your policy manual. Now everybody, you know, typically puts them online so that they're open and available for everybody in the community to see, right? Whether it's staff or a community member. And so those are their sort of their own. There are some pieces in the bylaws that should be a part of the policy manual, like I said, about your officers and those kinds of structural things. But then that how we work together stuff, that could be a very separate document, the protocols or operating procedures. Is that what you found useful?
Yeah, the bylaws, the board bylaws were quite separate from the district policy manual. I mean, in general, they're quite separate. I think the one, if we're talking about, you know, protocols, the one protocol that was difficult for me to put in place was contact with the board, staff contact with the board. And in my case, I did not allow it. I said to staff, you contact the board. The board is not your employer. The board is my employer, and I'm your employer. So you will not contact the board. If you have a problem, you'll contact me. And if a board member tells me that you've contacted them, you will have a problem. Because if everyone, I mean, I had a board member who stored her extra closet clothes in one of our schools. And that's a relationship that can't exist. She didn't have any more room in her closet, so she went to the operations guy and asked if he would find a space in a building for her to store her clothes. And because there was this, everyone's the board and we're all friends and
we all know one another.
And when the pipe leaked, he had to go over and fix it. So you have to put that, my protocol was no.
Did she want you to pay for her dry cleaning on her clothes when the pipe leaked on?
I won't even tell you how all those clothes ended up back in her driveway. I'm just saying, that is, Kevlin, that is one of the major protocol pieces about your staff and the board and your staff. And I've seen so many districts. I just was working with a district on the west side where the superintendent didn't get that under control, and that superintendent's not there any longer.
Yeah, because there's like a whole nother separate area around expectations of each other, right? That sort of falls under. And, it's important to make sure that the staff sees Kevlin as their leader.
Right.
And the minute the staff feels that they can go around him, you've pulled the legs out from underneath them, and he no longer is an effective leader in the district.
Right.
So that's the importance of that,
Right.
is that has to remain there so that you're still the final authority in the end, right?
Yeah.
But all of those things need to go to and through him before they should come to the board.
But Deb and Yvonne, some of that should be visited in policy, shouldn't it? By the board as to what, as far as the superintendent being our only employee, and then policy. Isn't it a way to, where the board, all the board members are on the same page and we're all going to operate in that protocol, in that space, which will help us to build the trust and have the
Right.
trust and be so supportive of one another, and also the respect even when we have the heavy conflict.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's why
It became a norm for us.
that's why we really, encourage boards to formalize those protocols that they agree to. Because as we talked about earlier this evening, you might be one election away, right, from very different people sitting
Yeah,
at
we
this
already- yeah,
table.
we're there.
And those protocols help continue to move the board
Yeah,
and the district
yeah.
forward while those transitions happen, while people try and figure out what their job is and all of those things, right? And it helps to minimize the chaos that can potentially happen during any kind of transition, whether it's a board transition or a superintendent transition. They're put in place to really help stabilize things and keep things going. And so, yeah, I'll work in districts and I'll say, for instance, another protocol is about onboarding new board members.
Yeah.
What supports were each of you provided? And, I get all kinds of different answers from the same board. And it's like, no, really a process should be agreed to and put in place so that no matter who you are and when you come on and who the president or superintendent is, you get the same level of support
Yep.
that you need to be a good board member from the very first time you sit at the table and have to make decisions. And sometimes I'll hear boards say, well, we sort of have a process, I got this and you got that, and it's this sort of thing. And I'm like, no sort of stuff. Formalize it, put it in writing so that everybody knows what it is. And it doesn't matter if it's today or tomorrow or next year. Those processes are there to help support your work. And it's much easier to do some of that development now. We talk about this 10-month period you have, right? It's much easier to do it while you're all sort of feeling this good vibe, right, of moving forward together to come to those agreements around how we work than it is when things fall apart, right? Or like it was, as you've all talked about previously, where things weren't as smooth. Then it's really tough to come to those agreements.
Imagine the power of having a strategic plan before the end of the 10 months. Imagine the power that would carry with the community, that all of you had come together and decided the future for the land, or for the Lansing, for the Z. I was like, it's my district now. It's my district. I'm sorry. For the Flint schools. Imagine the power being able to produce that for the community.
We can do it.
I know you can. I'm going to pass this out. I don't know what slide we're on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not worried about slides at
I'm
this
I'm
point.
lost on the slide because this conversation's been so good.
And so, I know, so you've had a conversation recently about the strategic plan component that you have. And so, even if this group decides, maybe we need to go back to the well and sort of restart it. What I would encourage you to do is, listen to Kevlin's perspective as a temporary even place, right? Let's put what we have in place as a placeholder.
Yeah.
And let us start working on that until we have something different. And maybe many of those components might move forward into the new process if that's what you choose to do. And I'm not here to sell you a plan. As a matter of fact, I've already started the paperwork to refund your deposit on the plan that you contracted for. So, that's not what I'm about. What I'm about is trying to figure out how to best support you. And if you see fit that you want to move forward with a strategic plan, for the future, then obviously we're happy to be a part of that. But in the meantime, I know there's some components that Kevlin feels like we need to have something for now.
Yeah, we do.
And so that can hold you over if that's the choice you make. So let's talk a little bit about how you're feeling about the conversation tonight, because we're about 15 minutes from the close. I want to be respectful of the time, and you know, if you want to do it again, I definitely want to be respectful of the time. I want you to feel like you got value out of tonight. So is there something that you might have wished we would have talked about that we didn't? that you
Building
feel you need?
utilization.
Pardon?
Or help us with our building utilization process. I think that's gonna be the hardest part for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have you
and
done facilities
Yes,
analysis?
we have that.
yeah, so that, something like that would typically come out of a strategic planning process, right? That you would use that in your future planning. I mean, Yvonne can speak to that better than me, having had to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, downsize, repurpose. Yeah, a lot of square footage had to be repurposed.
Right.
And I did not sell any land.
Adrian,
Random question. I know MASB does a workshop on budgeting, I believe. Have you all delved into the space of helping school districts with the ARPA conversation? And just not what it could look like, because every school district is different as to how they choose to allocate the funding. But again, how does that operate with your typical budget process, and what the big picture is now that you have, again, transformational dollars to invest versus spend? Have you all talked about maybe doing that? Because all school districts, again, in Michigan are dealing with the issue. We receive more than others, but again, I think it's something that a lot of school districts are still trying to wrap their mind around. And even if it's from a process standpoint, in terms of, again, we've embarked upon engaging our community in it beyond just the survey, literally going to the community to hear from them, synthesizing the data, and now hoping to embark upon next steps moving forward to put together a plan to walk alongside the board to advise us in our spending. Any thoughts around that?
yeah, you know, I'm not going to say we have something developed for that.
Sure.
Because it's still so new,
Right.
We have a number of what I would call finance CBA classes and know that, you know, if there's a specific topic that any of you have seen in the list of CBA classes that you think would be beneficial for the whole group to hear together, those instructors will come and do it here and sort of customize it so that you're talking about Flint, not in general, right? Whether it's finance or curriculum or any of the other things. Could we provide some support around that? Maybe. I do think that as you have continuing conversations around your strategic plan, that should actually help guide you in the use of those dollars, right? Because you have what is an unusual situation. For most districts who go into strategic planning and they come out the other side of it with a lot of ideas and no additional dollars to implement any of them, you're in a different situation right now, right? Just districts across the state are. I think it's part of why we've done so many strategic plans this year is because people are saying, we need some real thinking about what it is we want, so then we can best determine how to take advantage of what we do have and how that can really help propel a plan because you have those opportunities. So I'd go back. I would want to have conversations with Yvonne and a couple of other people around what kind of support around that specifically we might be able to help you with. But I honestly think your strategic planning process would play a big role.
Totally understand. I think it's just helpful to also understand how maybe like the things that the few times that I've attended a CBA class, the things that I found really fruitful beyond the training has been how other board members in other school districts has approached similar challenges that we're dealing with, right? So as we're talking about ARPA, everyone has it. It's insightful to also hear how other school districts are approaching spending.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to talk to Donwa Truber, our executive director, tomorrow because we have that Member Matters series, which are those podcasts. And that might be a really good topic because you'd have that opportunity for the interaction around what some people are doing.
Because they're non-recurring. I mean, they're non-recurring funds. So it can't be like personnel because, you know, you're not going to have it except for once. So,
Yeah, but he's always looking for topics.
yeah.
So tomorrow,
How to spend money. That sounds like a good topic.
it's a lot better than how to cut cut our programs. That's for darn sure. Other things you wish we would have talked
I
about?
think as a board member, one of the advantages that we do have, our assistant superintendent, Kiana, she's an expert in that, in my opinion, in that the ARPA funds, the ESSA funds. And we also have Ms. Dunpray, which is very good in understanding those guidelines. And I think that for the time being, until we all get to that point of understanding, they put together a very good, in my opinion, budget for us to follow. And I think we need to kind of listen a little bit.
Yeah.
However, I believe MASB had I think they had a training on that. I don't know if Laura attended that one Saturday, how they was telling how those ESSA funds go and how we, you know, what account they should go in. And so I took that training and lined it up with when they come before the board and they was telling us. And everything is pretty much, I think Flint School is pretty much on target.
Sure.
We're working with the state's in some PowerPoint. When I listen to the DPS with their ESSA funds, they nowhere near where Flint is at. You know, even the teacher, they know they're not doing nowhere near what we're doing, and they got way more money than we got. So I just think that this is new for the board. It's a burden for the board, for the simple fact this is not your typical board anymore with these ESSA funds. Because like Ms. McIntyre said, we have to really fight, look, and listen, and scrutinize, and hear what the partners are saying. But I think as a whole, and I pay close attention to what they say and what the superintendent's saying, because in order for them to look good, they got to win. And we have to win by trusting them. So I can just say this for sure. I've been listening to Mr. Adrian, because he's been heavy on the ESSA fund. Him and I have been heavy on them. And we was even talking about putting together some type of policy, a group together where we can have a guideline. What is it that we actually asking for? What are we looking for? Why can't we do, when you look at that whole package, very big to read. So as you look at those guidelines, maybe we can pull them out of what, this is why we can't remodel with this here. But this is why we can't do this. Because a lot of people think that we got a lot of money. We got a lot of money we don't use to give back, but, and we're still in a deficit. And so those are things that we have to look at. But I think overall that we're moving forward. I'm looking forward for the strategic plan. I'm looking forward to see what our partners is going to help us do to get these new buildings. So hopefully all the board feel the same way. I won't get everybody, but if we can get 4 board members to move forward, that'll be just fine with me.
So I'd like to see how we could talk about the meetings. And what I mean is, if we're going to be able to have you regularly, how can we take advantage of our subcommittees and not have a cop? So that meeting could be your meeting to help the board. In other words, try to restructure meetings so that the board is not so overwhelmed with meetings. So, I've heard that the board determines how many meetings we have. That we have to have, by law, we have to have 1 regular board meeting. So if this is going to be an ongoing thing, I mean, if the board wants to meet 3 times a month, fine with me, right? This is my work. But how could that work in the board's favor to not have so many meetings on their plate, because they all are a part of more than one subcommittee, And also you have the cow and you have the regular board meeting. So how can we take advantage? I don't know. How can you help us think about how we have meetings to take advantage of the subcommittee meetings to get things brought to the board meeting that we have, and then also have you on a regular basis until we can get some of this work done? That's just a thought that you know, maybe we can talk about in another.
Yeah, because I think we want to talk a little bit about what that might look like if this group is truly interested in an ongoing, you know, dialogue around governance and how to improve their practices. Then I think we need a little time to think about what it looks like exactly, and have some more conversation about the frequency, and how we might best use the time so that, because we realize, you know, both of us have been in positions where we realize one more night away, right, or whatever is a lot, and everybody has different schedules. So anytime we can take advantage of a structure that's kind of already there, then by all means, I think that probably makes the most sense, so that we get the high level of commitment that we're seeing tonight.
I had 2 meetings a month, 2 board meetings. One was presentation of action items, and the second meeting was action on action items. So nobody ever took action on an action item the first time they saw it. And I had a study session, so I had 3 meetings a month.
Did you have subcommittee?
And subcommittees.
Okay. Well,
So
that's
there
what
were
we
2 regular board meetings and a study session. That study session was decided by the board what they wanted to dig into. Could have been student achievement, could be attendance data, could be, partnerships, could be whatever the board wanted. And it happened every month, and I would.
So that's basically this.
And my staff would prepare, me and my staff would prepare that study session. But there were 2 regular board meetings, there was an information study session, and subcommittees. And I'm happy to share any of that structure with you, Kevlin, anytime you want.
Thank you.
Happy to do that. And an executive team meeting every month too.
And I'll send it to the board as soon as you give it to me. I'll make sure the board has it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Alan?
If we were ready right now, what would be the first step?
First step in what?
Put me on.
Ready for what?
Right, ready for what? That's a good question.
The
First.
strategic plan,
Oh.
what would be the first step?
Yeah, well, the first step would be us taking a look at what Kevlin is proposing that you move forward right now.
Okay,
We'd
so
want to
we-
see that.
And this is a hypothetical. We passed that. Now, what is the first step?
Yeah, so the first step would be really for the board to take formal action that they wanted to do it. Because in addition to, sort of cementing that between this group, it sends a message to your community
Right.
that this is an important thing. And this is why we feel we need, to move this forward and go down this road.
So one last,
Did you already vote on doing a strategic
yes,
plan?
yes.
Oh, so you've already
So-
decided.
So-
We
No,
moved
we
it.
moved it to the full board.
We moved it to the
That's
regular
right,
board
Chris,
meeting.
right. We moved it to the full board.
Oh, okay.
Which
Next
means
week.
next week you're going to take action on it.
Yeah,
We've been voted on that a long time ago. We just couldn't never get there up in here.
We voted on it a long time ago.
voted on what?
Voted on what?
Voted on what?
I
months ago?
remember that.
Yeah, we voted.
Yeah, we not.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
we
that's
know
a
that.
separate thing.
Yeah, that's something different.
Oh, is it
That's what you're
separate?
talking about.
So, yeah, so back in 2019, you approved moving forward with a strategic planning process with MASB. That's when the contract was signed.
It was with me.
Yeah.
2000
I was going to be your.
Well, no, this is before that.
Oh, it was before me?
2019 is when the contract was signed by Derek Lopez.
Yep.
I came out in March, early March of 2020, before the craziness happened. And we did an input session with the board. So that was our first input session. And then there was a snowstorm and we had to cancel the administrative session. And then I went on vacation, and when I came home, everything closed down.
Yep.
And then we put it on pause. Now, this is the way it worked. And then there was the changeover in leadership,
Yeah.
right? And so we put it on pause and then we picked it up and we were going to move forward and then it went on pause and it went back and forth through that phase. When Kevlin came on, he and I had a conversation and said, what would you like to do? You know, and it was at that time that Kevlin expressed to me that this work had been done. And again, wanting to honor that hard work, we said, let's have the conversation with the board individually and then determine a direction that you want. Yes, we had a contract, but we were not going to hold you to the contract.
That's what she said. Yeah.
Because we want you to do what you all think is right for the district, right? And so that's where I said, I've actually started the process to refund you that
No.
first half of the payment
Yeah,
We-
we did.
because we felt like maybe that was what was best. If the board and superintendent team here feel like it's a different group, it's a different superintendent, different board members, if you all feel like you want us to work on that process moving forward and try and pull what you have in to see what makes sense, moving it forward as part of that process, then we're happy to do that. But it would take, because of what we've already decided, it would take, on my part, I believe, I would want you to take board action because this is a different board.
We did when Ms. Stewart was the superintendent. We voted for MASB to help us with our strategic plan. The problem was Ms. Stewart would never call you
Yeah.
to set it
She would never
up. But
call
this
y'all back.
board took action and voted to move
Yeah.
forward with a new strategic plan with the help and assistance of MASB.
Yeah, so
What
those
happened was-
pieces may have happened that I'm not aware of.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's, well, yeah.
But
that's
yeah,
exactly
what
what
I'm giving you was sort of the official, how we got to where we were. And I, like I said, we just want to be supportive.
No, we understand, I understand, but I'm just
Also
saying.
to let you know, in another district, just so that in a different district, we actually have done a hybrid of board governance and strategic planning together.
Hybrid.
A hybrid. So it's not just strategic planning, it's a continuing conversation about board governance, the role of the board vis-à-vis the strategic plan, vis-à-vis the district. So, I mean, I think I'm just saying it's all customizable.
Yeah.
Whatever the board wants. Sorry, Mr. Gilbert. I
No,
interrupted you.
that's
So
what I
this is-
wanted,
yeah,
because
this
I
is
remembered
unique.
what Dr.
This is a
McNeil said
unique
when we
situation.
first got here. That was her preaching sermon, was the strategic plan.
Given the sense of urgency in 10 months until the next turnover potentially. You know, I know Carol mentioned once a week. I don't know what, you said you're gonna go back and talk about what would be feasible, but maybe that's what I'd like to see is like a timeline, and the sooner the better because of the urgency. Oh, can you guys not hear me?
Not really.
Yeah, I was just talking about a timeline because of the urgency.
Right.
And,
Right.
I mean, I think we're all ready to roll up our sleeves and do whatever it takes. I don't want to speak for everybody, and I certainly don't want to speak for you. You have this look of alarm on your face. Like,
Well,
oh,
once a
like,
week,
oh,
I've never heard a
no.
group commit to that level of work.
But we're
So-
at that crossroads, you know,
Yeah, we are.
and that window is,
Yep.
it's like a
So-
portal.
So
You know, it's
I-
going to shut down real quick.
Stargate.
Yeah. So I want to be perfectly frank with you because I've encouraged you to do that. And so I'm going to do that with you. Yvonne and I are both about to take some extended time away.
Where y'all going? No, just
Two different places. Hers is much more exciting.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to drive to our home in Mexico.
Oh,
It's only
drive?
7 days drive from
Oh,
here.
my God, no.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun.
And I'm just going to work
Well, I'm with my
remotely.
husband. Did I tell you that?
That's not bad.
That's what fun that is.
That's that.
And starting next week, I'm going to be working remotely for the next 4 weeks.
But I remember you.
Yeah, and she can work remotely. So I think we have to try and figure out what makes sense, right,
Okay.
for this group.
Yeah.
What we can do
Mhm.
based on the fact that we'll be away for a bit. Doesn't mean we can't do some work while we're away, because we certainly can. There's a lot of back work to a strategic planning process anyway, and that work can happen while we're gone. What it would mean is we wouldn't get to do any in-person input sessions until at the earliest, the end of March. We still could do a retreat and have a plan before the end of June.
Yes,
You're not going to get it much quicker than that. That's really compressing
even if we were
it.
here.
Even if we were here.
Right.
But they're
So
talking about
since
the
you, so
revised
since you,
strategic plan.
since you guys are talking remote, the work that Kevlin has done with the
Yeah.
community seems like he can turn that over to you so you guys can be customizing that work that you said you would have to have that information to customize it so we can move forward. Just my opinion, for us to move expeditiously.
What work you talking about for the strategic plan?
The community information
Oh, the
Mr.
community
Kevlin
one?
gave, and everybody wrote down their ideas and
The
stuff like that.
Okay.
He's done the
Totally
community-
separate from strategic.
Yeah, totally separate.
Well, it plays a part in the strategic plan, though.
So
No.
let's, seem
No.
like we would just give them the strategic plan,
So
right? Is
we're
that
going
what you
to
guys
approve a
requested?
strategic plan next Wednesday. I don't know how much help anyone can give us between now and then. Community partners, MASB.
approving a strategic-
Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. We're talking, because I think Deb said that they would like to see the strategic plan so they can look at that and can come up with a customized.
But yeah, we definitely
Right.
would
So I don't
want to
think they
see
need
what it is that you're approving next week.
Right.
Not to influence what you
Right.
do.
Right, that's what
But
you
so
said.
that it can help inform us
Right.
about what kind of pieces might we pull forward? How would we use what you've already done
Right.
to,
Right.
help
But to
support the new
Carol's point,
process.
What I'm-
once Insight finish what they're doing,
Yeah,
maybe
I
that's something
understand
we
that.
can add
I,
to.
I understand that portion, but what I'm also saying is, since she's saying it might be 4 weeks out, the community piece and the partnership piece he already has. They mentioned something about get the information from your partners. as it
Input
perta-
sessions,
Yeah,
yeah.
as it pertains to the strategic plan, and he's already done that,
So
right?
we had, so what you're going to hopefully vote on next week is we've had community.
Right.
So we embedded the community work. Monday, we have a community relations committee meeting that will be going over the insight work, that the synthesized work, so that can be brought forward to the entire board, just to know that
On
info.
Wednesday.
However, I think there's a lot of moving parts. Like we were saying earlier, there's a lot of moving parts, but to not do away from the community work that's been done and the work that the staff has been done, we hopefully move forward with what we have, and then allow MASB to say, okay, let me look at this
And that's what I'm
and see
saying
how we can
right
do our
here.
working sessions with what we have as a
And
plan.
fill in the rest of it.
Take
is what I'm saying.
take out what doesn't work for the board, or put in what does work. Like you said, it's a hybrid. It's a
Whatever the
unique situation.
customized package will be, that'll give them the opportunity to look at some of the information that we already have, and whatever we're missing, when they come back, they'll be able to let us know what we're missing and what else we have to fill in order to complete, because we know it's several parts, but the pieces that we have, since you already have it and we can't meet in person, I'm saying, give them that
Yeah.
information so they can begin to process that.
Yeah,
So
so
we
can I
could-
ask a question? Can I ask a question?
yeah.
You're going to approve to do a strategic plan.
No, they're going to
No,
approve the one that
the
Matt
plan.
didn't work on.
Okay,
See, I
so,
didn't understand
but
that.
you're going to approve the strategic plan that's already in place.
okay.
What
so-
are you approving? I want to
Okay,
know.
so.
Are you approving a
so-
vendor to do your strategic
No.
plan, or what are you approving?
Okay, so December 20th through May of 21,
Yeah,
all right, December of 2020 to May of 2021, we worked on a strategic plan.
with another entity, an external entity.
Yes.
Okay,
With, and we had those meetings that you spoke of earlier.
Okay,
And so my conversation to Debbie was, we went through a lot of those processes.
Right.
And some of our board members were present in that. And a lot of our staff was present in that.
right,
And we didn't want to just do away with all of that work that was
Right.
done.
right.
And we wanted to move some things forward. So I brought it to the board as an action item last night, a few minutes ago, to get approved so we can we can start those components and the board moved it forward to next week. However, the conversation was still, the board can make amendments. We can make amendments to the plan as we move forward because we have 10 months together and we want to make sure that we can get some work done.
So you're acknowledging and approving the work that's already been done towards strategic planning.
Yes.
And if I can say this, I think what I hear Debbie saying is that there probably needs to be an action item at some point, and I don't know if it's after analyzing what's already been done or before, that says the board is approving MASB as their strategic planning partner.
But
Okay.
yeah, I would just want that reaffirmation.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is,
you are a
even though it's
different
already
group.
been done.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, I would think that if we are going to allow them to assist us in a professional capacity before we vote on that as a board, I think we voted to move it to the board, and I think we can vote to allow MASB to look at that information to tie it in with our official strategic plan versus voting it in as a portion of the strategic plan. Then it's on the record, and now we got to go back and make motions and change it versus letting them look at it, work it into our strategic plan, have them guide us professionally because we're not really sure about how to gel this all together, and let them help us with that. And then we can vote on that because it's still the same work. But let
Can be an
them,
amendment.
yeah, let them do their portion to it. Go ahead. That's it, I'm done.
Now,
Sister Yvonne, I think you're right. The acknowledgement, you'd have to have an amendment to do that.
Yeah.
That's what came to my mind.
Yeah.
And you said that because you said the acknowledgement and the action item to approve it.
Right.
So it goes together.
Right.
So that's the way that would have to be properly done because it's being brought forth from what was created previously, right?
Yes.
And that's what I heard her say. That, to me, would be within the bylaws, within the board's sphere and the power that we have. That would be the only way to do it. Because
So,
we couldn't,
yeah.
unless we're going to separate it some kind of way.
So I have, and this is why I didn't vote to move it forward either, because I have some serious reservations about what has been brought forth. Because I trust you, Superintendent, I trust the process, I'm appreciative of the hard work. However, there hasn't been full transparency into how this document has come about. There's been several administrative groups working on it. There have been groups that have worked on it that aren't known or acknowledged. I mean, I feel like we need your help looking at this document. And no offense, Superintendent, to your statement or anything, but I have some serious reservations about some of the pieces in it. And so I didn't want to vote on it and move it forward until we had buy-in from the board, an understanding of what it was. Like even Chris was asking, what is a strategic plan? And then we had a cow yesterday where we moved it forward to the full board for approval. And I just feel like it's putting the cart before the horse. I feel like we need some input, and maybe if we go back and revisit that so that we can go over it as a board with people that we've put forward as our partners through a motion, through an official channel so that it's all documented and we're all saying yes to every stage along the way, as opposed to, getting this board packet where it's like, what are we looking at? Because there was like one particular thing that I thought was really egregious. And everybody, we hadn't had a chance to go over it.
So
that make sense?
So another crossroads. Okay. Dangerous one, in fact.
Yeah.
Just the thought is you want to acknowledge the work that's already been done, and you want to approve this work to be sent to a strategic planning process with MASB.
That's what I was.
Okay, so that's the amendment to the action item.
Yeah.
It's acknowledging and approving the wonderful work, for whatever political story you want to say, but the wonderful work that's been done, and the board approves to send this on to MASB to continue the strategic planning work with MASB in the future. I mean, that, some sort of wording like that, so that you're acknowledging and you're using, you say officially, you're going to use this work that was done
To inform the
to
process.
inform the process. Thank you for the words. But it's not even, I don't know, do you have to amend the motion? I think, have you made it yet?
They haven't made it
Not
yet.
yet.
No,
No,
so
we
you
just moving it.
write the motion in a way that says you're acknowledging and, what was that? You're acknowledging this important work that's been done
And
and
approving.
you're approving it to be,
Considered.
to inform the strategic planning process with MASB.
But we did vote on an item to move it forward to the meeting next week, to the full board, to adopt this document as our strategic plan.
To move it forward. Next week, we can still vote it down.
Oh, you can
Okay.
amend that motion.
Yeah,
And so we can amend
Yeah,
it.
we're just moving it to the board it just moved
For consideration.
to the main board to say, today we're voting for
Okay.
it to be whatever it's
And
going to
then
be.
we'll amend it.
Consideration.
Yeah.
Okay, and, okay.
Yeah.
Just so I'm clear, I'm sorry, my mom's in the hospital, my sister was
Oh.
calling me. So we're amending the motion to acknowledge and approve the strategic, is that what you said? Help me out.
I mean, you can wordsmith this
Okay.
however you want, but the idea is that you're acknowledging
Okay,
the work that's already been done towards strategic planning, not the strategic plan, towards strategic planning.
acknowledging it, what is that exactly?
Acknowledging and approving the work that's been done
And
towards
approving, okay. that's what-
towards strategic planning,
Okay,
which will inform the strategic plan with MASB.
So can I,
Some sort of way of saying,
So that's, so would that mean that
right.
we currently do not have one?
A strategic plan.
well, that's that fine line to
Right.
say that it is informing where the work that's been done towards strategic planning. So this is not, well, I don't know, I haven't even seen it, so I couldn't tell if it's a strategic plan or not. I haven't seen it.
So the action that we brought to the board was to approve what we have with the caveat to amend as the board is in training with MASB.
Yeah, so I think there's a piece that's missing here, because Kevin, in your and my conversation, there was some urgency in having something approved and in place for some work that's being done.
Correct.
Potentially.
There's work that with renovating, with building new buildings that need to get done, but there is no strategic plan to be our guide. And so that's the reason why. Now, if there's things in the strategic plan that the board wants to change, and I feel like as I continue to read, and listen to you all, we might make amendments. Yes. I just didn't want, it's hard to work with the community and you don't have anything to go on.
Yeah.
So if I don't have a strategic plan to move us, then I don't know how long your process is going to take. And then that might back up other work.
Yeah, so,
we building it, ain't we?
Yeah, we did.
so let me ask the board this. Would you be willing to trust that Yvonne and I could do some of our best thinking tonight on the drive home and tomorrow morning and have a conversation with your superintendent about wording that might get us to a point that works for your approval for next week? And knowing that one or two of us might not be exactly 100% happy with it, right? But it gets us to the next step and honors the needs he has right now temporarily to have something in place so that we are being proactive and working on initiatives in the district until we get our final product for the long term. How does that sound to this group?
Yeah, I agree.
Works for me.
It works for me too. so we can continue the work and keep moving forward.
Sounds like there might be a difference between some specific initiative that you need to have support for and a more comprehensive strategic plan that touches upon different aspects of the district. Would I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I start? I think what we need to focus on, we had this meeting last night. We cannot afford to pay anything else out of our general funds. And that's why, because we don't have the strategic plan, we need to move forward. We got to get all this work done. And so we stuck with a bill now out of general fund. And that's what the strategic plan does, help us with our spendings, help us with these ESSA funds. And so without that, we're dealing with the government. Where's that strategic plan? We can't spend this money because I think the urgency is let's move forward. We amend as we go. We can adjust as we go. But it's just like going to the bank and the bank is asking you for something and you don't have anything with it. So I think what I'm understanding is that we need to move forward with amendments going forward, however you want to put that. But we cannot hold this up any longer. Come Wednesday, next week, we need to be approving. Now it's a 7 vote, and it's just me. But I think we need to prove something with these amendments, with us saying that we make amendment as we go. I'm not trying to sit down meeting by meeting, week by week. I done been through the workshop. When they first started, I done read it. It might not be who we like that presented it, but I think we should move forward because we're behind. We can't even close these buildings down. We can't make a decision without the strategic plan.
Well, and I think we can accomplish that and still honor your concerns.
Yes.
In that, that's why I said, maybe we might not like every exact piece of how it's going to, come together for next week. But if you can say, something to the effect, and you get to vote however you want, right? I mean, that's your option. But if you can say, something to the effect of, there are components in this plan that I have concerns about, but I'm going to trust the process in that we're going to, give this current work that we have done to superintendent so that he can continue improvements in the district while we do this larger thing. And for some of us, that's going to, that's a leap of faith a bit, right? But I think that might be able to get us to the place where we can then say, here's our next step.
I'm gonna, the elephant in the room. Is there any concern or some concern that the entity that helped put the plan you have now together believes that their future with you is extended beyond the life of that particular piece?
No, we worked with MSU, which has been working with our district with curriculum and instruction. I was in the process. I was there. I think there's more issues with other partners with our board than it is. I didn't have an issue with the process. I've been through strategic planning.
Okay.
I knew that when Debbie talked to me, I learned some things that I didn't know. I wasn't privy to the fact that you were a phone call away and somebody didn't make that call. Like, I wasn't privy to that. All I know, and a lot of the staff knows, is we're working together to do best practice to put this plan together. And so there was some other things that came about, and Debbie, you let me know that we had already had opportunity to work with you all. Well, the staff doesn't know that. The community that was working with us didn't know that. And so that's why my heart goes to saying, I don't want to put away the hard work they did because somebody didn't make the right decision over here, right?
I'm only asking you about the political climate.
Yeah,
That's it.
Laura has.
I was next after me, Neil. I'm saying keep that work. because it was
Yeah, no,
good
Ms.
work.
Yeah.
It was good work. I'm saying, I'm saying we can make the motion to accept the suggestions to the strategic plan that have already been set before us for possible implementation. And that moves the work forward into the strategic plan. The work on Doral Ryder has already been approved. That's why I bought this building utilization book with me, because I thought we were going to work on the strategic plan and get into the meat and potatoes. And I understand you need some groundwork to set the recipe up. So my thought is this: if we go ahead and get into our building utilization, then we know what buildings we're closing. That way we know what buildings we need to fix. That way we're not spending additional dollars on buildings we're going to go back and close later and wasting funds. That if we jump, because we know this is pertinent, this building utilization. Now, Ms. Don Prey been talking to us about this all year, that we're going to have to make some tough decisions. We know we got about 96 kids over there at Pierce. What common sense say to me, it's just me, and my common sense ain't everybody common sense. And then sometimes I find out my common sense wasn't that good. But common sense tells me if Pierce got 96 kids, we can close Pierce. And Pierce is full of mold and outdated, and it's going to take $1 trillion to fix it. And why would we invest in a school with 96 kids? Then that moves me to Freeman, with a lot of kids, but the school raggedy. That's where we need to spend some money at. That's common sense. You know why? Because a bulk of our students, our market share, let's look at it like a market. A bulk of our market share of our kids go to Freeman, and they don't have what they need, and the building isn't up to par. So we need to concentrate dollars on Freeman. Then we look at the next school. This school only got 125 kids. It costs us X amount of dollars to keep that school open. If we only got 120 kids times 8,000, we're going in the red keeping this school open. We need to close that school. Now, we know we need some schools on the north side and on the south side because we got kids on both sides of town. What schools have the largest concentration of students? Them the buildings we need to concentrate on. Them the buildings we need to fix. Now, we know we like our high schools. We did speak of this. I'm not trying to influence nobody, but Jason, based off what we discussed, say if we did two schools on, one school on each side of town, because we expecting growth, because we are growing. We grew for the first time last year in 2 decades almost. I would like to think there's more to come, especially when we get to renovating and working on our strategic plan. So we know we need a northern, whatever school y'all decide, if we decide to tear down Whittier and Central and build a new school and renovate Northwestern and then make Northern a school for bad kids, we know we need money invested in this school, and this school. It ain't that hard.
So Ms.
those are all
Carroll,
good.
so Ms. Carroll, teaching and learning, that's in the strategic plan, MTSS work, PBIS work.
Okay.
What I'm saying is there's work in there that we need to move forward and be able to take into other conversations to approve so that we can move. That doesn't mean what you're saying can't happen and amendments happen. That's what I'm saying. So I
based that off of when you said we got schools that need to be renovated. That's what I based that off.
and that's in the strategic plan.
Okay.
Building new schools is in the strategic plan. I think this is more about there's things that we may not be happy with. As far as I know, Ms. Laura brought up the CS MOT piece. We can, if the board comes to that, if the evidence comes, we can talk about that as we go through our
Absolutely.
right, and boom, take that out. We don't want that, right? But that doesn't mean that the strategy for teaching and learning is not moving forward.
Oh, absolutely.
Culture and climate is not moving forward.
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, that's good.
So that's what we're saying. So
Yeah.
approving with the caveat of making adjustments as we go.
So I'm specifically speaking to the strategic plan as a document, as a
Me too.
as a quasi-legal or legal document. That's great, Carol. I'm with you on that. I'm with you, Kevin, on needing to have something to move forward to get the spades into the ground and stuff. Here's my concern, and this is the political elephant in the room, is that page 11, we have a tribute to CS Mott and the CS Mott Foundation. And it's kind of like Indigenous peoples honoring Columbus or something. And it's a big picture of them. But more importantly is the content of what's written on that page, because ideologically it lifts him up as being the creator of the community school model. And then under that, which is not true, we have Andy Highsmith, who's a historian, has documented in this book, you know, that he actually had a model of the community schools that was predicated on segregation. And, you know, there's all this, you know, the community schools isn't really about community schools. It's about racial segregation. And then under that piece, we were talking about the push towards privatization and eliminating public education as a policy. A lot of our services, whether they're pedagogical, academic, or janitorial, or food service, have been outsourced to third-party vendors. Now, one of our third-party vendors, or our partners, you know, even if they're not vendors, we've got these community partners that have taken things out of house. So our community school directors are being run by the nonprofit industrial complex. They are not being run by the Flint schools. And so that page 11 still has our community school directors under the control of a nonprofit organization.
Is this page 11 in the strategic plan?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Not quite. No.
Okay.
I got page 11 right here, and I promise you, you wouldn't get all that out. I'm just saying, once you guys get the plan,
Yeah,
just take a look at it.
all right.
And I'm not disregarding what Ms. Laura is saying, not
But
at all.
I think you are. I mean,
Well, I said I'm not, and I'm the judge of that. I'm not doing
Well,
that.
I'm not-
What I would say
I'm
is,
not
once you get the
finished, though.
plan, take a look at page 11, okay?
Yeah.
Because we had this conversation last night, and it got voted down to take the page out by the
Okay.
board,
All right.
okay?
But what it says on that page is factually and historically inaccurate. And what I'm concerned about is that ideologically, the groups that went into creating this document didn't have our best interests as a district at heart. There's pieces in it that are wonderful that need to be kept. We do need a strategic plan. We need to move forward. But structurally and ideologically, there's some problematic things in this document that needs to be changed. And I'm afraid to okay it with, you know, then making it, you know, the whole problem with this district is what Dr. Highsmith calls administrative segregation.
Okay.
And this is part of the process of administrative segregation is if you pass this stuff and it gets put into a formalized document, and this is how inequality is reproduced. So that's what I'm concerned about. And it may seem like I'm nitpicking and it's a small thing, but I guarantee you it's not.
Okay, we'll take a look at it for neutrality.
Thank you.
I would just, this last comment. I understand Sister Laura's concerns. I really do. But the thing is that we also have the late Dr. Martin Luther King on page 9.
Right.
And everybody didn't love Dr. King, because if they did, he wouldn't be dead.
Exactly. Not murdered.
So my point is that I may not agree with page 11, but I may not agree with page 5. But the board has the power to make sure through amendments that is taken out. But if it's not taken out because the board has decided under the majority, we still have to remain and trust one another that we're going to stay together and that we're going to be able to understand that those amendments that the superintendent is talking about will help us get there. Because when you two, Sister Deb and Sister Yvonne, you're going to talk about how to get us there. You're not necessarily, you might see that when you look at it, you're going to have an opinion about it. But that's not what your charge is. That's not what the agreement is.
We're simply helping
That's
the process.
that's
forward.
my point. That's my point. So that's the only thing that I'm saying, that we're ready to go. I agree. We're ready to go to work like Dr. McNeil. We just don't have time. We'll work it out. But once we vote and once we decide, that's where the trust factor comes in.
Yeah, and so I'm going to leave you with this because I want to be respectful of your time. And so this is what I'm going to suggest is what I suggested earlier, that you allow Yvonne and I to have some time tonight and early morning to get our best thoughts together, have a conversation with Kevlin, and come up with some language that hopefully you can approve. Some of you may not be comfortable voting yes to approve it, and I think that's okay.
Yeah.
With a positive explanation of why, right? I am supportive of these pieces, but I have some concerns, right? But what I am going to do is when the board takes its action, I'm going to support that action as part of this team to move forward with, right? Because there will always be votes when any one of us might be on the other side of some piece of something. But the important part is supporting the action of the board, because that's the only power this board has, is in that vote.
I'm on board, but let me ask the board this. Why do we have to have C.S. Mott or Martin Luther King in our strategic plan? Ain't our strategic plan to move us forward? And what do they have to do? And I respect their work. Don't get me wrong. I respect their work, and I understand that they made great sacrifices to get us here, and they both fought for equality. I'm not questioning that. My point is, I thought the strategic plan was to build up our district and move us forward to a new place and a new era and time. And I'm not understanding why we got to salute to C.S. Mott and why we got to salute and I love Martin Luther King, even him. What he got to do with what they got to do with tomorrow?
Right. So what I brought up last night is, so there was the C.S. Mott piece. And then I said, go to page 9, Dr. King's there. And then I said, look at the pictures of the children on page whatever it was. And the question becomes, what does any of that have to do with the strategic plan? If you pull all those nice little pictures of the children doing whatever they were doing, and you pull out Dr. King and you pull out C.S. Mott, does it change the strategic plan? And in my opinion, it doesn't. So why is it in there? That's that.
We talked about this last night.
Exactly.
We talked about it all last night.
I mean, we don't see from you today, we don't see any pictures of children in here or any history of the state of Michigan or anything else.
If we take away the children, I mean, since we've been on this board, we hadn't really gotten down to what is it the children want. And then we're having a problem with children pictures.
Well, I ain't got a problem with the kids.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Everybody who spoke. With children pictures in that strategic plan, then we must be having a serious problem.
I do not have.
I'm not saying you. I'm just saying we're talking about pictures. Now, I know you don't want Mark in there. You don't want Martin Luther King. Trust me, born and raised in Mississippi, if I don't know nothing else, I know what it feels like to be spit on, mistreated, watch your grandparents get hung because of the color of their skin. So don't preach to me about racism. What I'm saying is, if these two pictures bother you, you cannot undo history. You cannot undo the pain and suffering of racism. But what we can do is move on and try to make it a better place. I have no problem. It's kind of getting to me because we just keep pawning on this here. I cannot beat that man down for what his ancestors done. I'm done with that. I done moved on with that. Don't tell me how I should feel about racism. What bothers me is that you want to pledge allegiance to a flag and they won't give you voting rights. So don't come in here talking about C.S. Mott when they hear it's 2022 and they're saying blacks don't have the right to vote. Now, are we going to pass the strategic plan or not? It's about the kid. Put a kid on the front page because let's keep us focused. Those children in those books, they just pictures, they're kids, they are kids. Let's stay focused on the kid. Now, but you cannot make me adopt what your political belief is. And I'm going over and over again. I love you, but that's your political belief. Because everybody faces pain and suffering. Trust me. Going to school because they did integration. And the first thing a white teacher told me, AP student in the black school, she gave me a thing. And she said, that stands for dumb, because you will always be dumb. So don't talk to me about all of this theological stuff. Let's move on and get this done. And I love you. I'm done with it. Whatever you vote for, I'm going to support it with joy.
Can I give context to Mr. Del Marone, and then I'm going to be quiet.
Then we're going to John.
When-
We're going to.
This is our Bible, and this is for children. And the fierce urgency of now came from Dr. Martin Luther King. That was a prelude to our strategies. It's like a forward to our strategies. In any book, you have a forward or someone that speaks to this work. Pictures in it, it's for kids. It tells the story of what we're doing. If this work that all of these folks did and came together and done, and they decide that they wanted to put pictures in it to show that this is our school district and this is what we're about, that forwardness came from the conversations we had, the fierce urgency of now, and the community education work, the CSMOT, the community education work, is about the community education work that we're doing. It's just forward information to get us to the strategies. It's not something that is a law to the work we're doing. It's just forward work, telling you why we're getting to the strategies on the next pages. The color and all of that is, so our strategic plan looks like something. And when we put it up online, it's like your website. You don't want it to just have words on it. You want it to look like something. It just brings vibrant colors and vibrancy to the work we're doing. It's just like a book. A kid is not going to read a book. Sometimes the parents won't read a book with their kid if there's nothing on it that attracts them. So those attractions help our children and our people be involved in the strategic plan and the work we're doing. It's just a part of how you build a strategic plan. And that's what that's all about. It's not that it's a
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin.
either or.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
I know, because I just want to know where we ended up. I'm not sure where we ended up. You're going to send us the document so we can take a look at it. And we'll talk about it on the way home. I have seen millions of strategic plans. They're usually pretty neutral. There's lots of pictures of kids. Rarely do I see political figures in strategic plans, but you could break the mold. I also want you to know my mother was the first female community ed director in the state of Michigan. Trained in Flint by CSMOT. And she was certainly not a racist.